Chapter 389. The matter with the Blood Flame Order came to an end, but Luo Nan could not help feeling a bit vexed. It was getting harder and harder for him to dismount. It could be seen that the core members of the Blood Flame Order were extremely determined. They were all aiming to reconstruct the sacrificial vessel during the establishment ceremony. However, due to a freak combination of factors, the Wraith sign had replaced their original mold. This was an irreversible process. If he took back the Wraith talisman now, the Blood Flame Order would become a great enemy, and they would not rest until one of them was dead. However, if he dragged it on, it would only be a temporary peace. He would have to take it back sooner or later, and the longer he dragged it on, the more headache he would have. Unless he gave up the Wraith sign, but how was that possible? Luo Nan tossed this vexing problem to the back of his mind for the time being. He thought about how Mrs. Halder was going to investigate the scene. He wanted to go as well. Even if the 1 million had already exploded, as long as he could find some clues, it would still be helpful for the investigation later. Luo Nan did his best to recall the video data, searching for the relevant area. Thanks to the powerful network search function of the information age, and the consciousness search function of the Hexa-ear, even if it was just an impression, he would soon get the answer. He still felt that it wasn't enough, so he used his authority to use the real-time street view mode on the psychic wave network to adjust the public cameras and confirm it again. The order of the recycling stratum was terrible. Most of the relevant cameras had been destroyed, but Luo Nan spent a bit of time piecing together the images. He was able to find the area where the incident most likely occurred, and he discovered a glaring pool of blood there. At this moment, there were people taking pictures in the surroundings, all of them very carefully. This is the place. According to what Mo Luan said, he had already arranged for people to deal with the scene. That was why it was said that this kind of old man was the most annoying. Luo Nan wanted to eat the first bite of soup, but he was afraid that it would be too much. Glancing at his watch, the first class was about to end. After class, he would find a quiet place and enter an out-of-body state. It would only take him a minute or two to reach the Riverwu district. Luo Nan's plan was quite good, and the preliminary work was quite in place. But the true big boss was unwilling to cooperate. On the podium, the cultured lecturer of the writing class said, "Let's not end the class. For the rest of the time, let's practice in class. It's a very basic character logic." "Teacher, I want to leave my body." Luo Nan had to kneel when faced with the reality that he had to attend writing classes in a row, and that there would be tests. Even if he wanted to sleep on the table, he couldn't. What to do? Given Madame Halder's shrewdness, there wouldn't be anything left of her once she arrived at the scene. Luo Nan's mind was in a mess, but the teacher didn't care about him. She directly threw out the requirements for writing practice. The goal of the practice was character logic. There were a series of requirements. The student had to make sure that the words they wrote corresponded with each other. The initial requirement was simple. Describe an impressive person. Make sure you know the person well. Family, friends, and classmates were all fine. He could start with a description of their appearance. Of course, this involved a series of details such as the shape of the face, mouth, nose, eyes, eyebrows, beard, and so on. The Luo Nan of 2 months ago might have had a narrow range of choices, but it was much easier now. He had chosen Shuelei, whom he had interacted with the longest. Yes, Shuelei was closer to the understanding of normal people. Shuelei was his target. The writing teacher must have a prying eye. Following that, there was a series of information such as address, health, family, education, love, marriage, history, religious orientation, actions, and thought patterns. Finally, the interaction with the target should also be listed, such as specific instances of helping or sabotaging each other's actions. There was a commotion in the classroom. Did this mean that their friendship was over? Luo Nan wrote in a very relaxed manner. It was like a sketch pieced together from words. This was his advantage. At most, he only needed to consider the content that exceeded normal thinking and logic. Perhaps Luo Nan was affected by this relaxed state, but the key points in his mind suddenly opened. As he wrote and wrote, his train of thought flew away from Shuelei. It was just like what his teacher had always tried to express. Characters were a collection of social relationships. A single person's ability was limited. The help of friends and social cooperation were the only ways to increase efficiency. Why did he have to think of such an inefficient method like skipping class? His train of thought was clear. His writing might not be divine, but he knew what to do next. A strand of his mind was thrown out, and ink responded dozens of kilometers away. Luo Nan didn't have the time to pay attention to the progress of Trigate Securities' operation over the past 2 days. He just divided a bit of his mind to ensure that ink was obedient. Actually, the official search mission had already begun on Sunday. Right now, it was the free time for professionals. Peony and Long 7 had split up to lead a group of people to collect clues. They would summarize and analyze the clues every day, but there had been no progress so far. In other words, luck was very important. Luo Nan activated the telepathic thought he left on Ink's body, and his consciousness descended. Ink was already used to this. It flapped its wings twice, expressing its welcome. Luo Nan's consciousness had just arrived, and he had yet to do proper business when he first felt a bit of peculiarity. Since Ink had a relatively low level of intelligence, Luo Nan's telepathic thought descended without any pressure. He didn't need to worry about anything. He had the most connections, and the corresponding feeling was the most familiar. Because of this, he immediately felt that something was different when his telepathic thought moved. It was like listening to a familiar song. The singer was the same, but there was a clear difference between the live version and the studio version. It looked like the effects of his 2-day closed-door training over the weekend were greater than he had imagined. Speaking of which, Luo Nan had gone from the fundamental format pyramid to the structure of the living starry sky with clairvoyance. From his internal organs, 9 orifices, and 6 roots to the state of his soul body, all of them had undergone relatively significant changes. This sort of change was all-encompassing. The resulting effects involved the structure of Luo Nan's body and soul, as well as all aspects of his internal and external connections. But because the effects were too broad, many things could only be experienced after actual contact. For example, Ink. After the format pyramid transformed into a star atlas, the connection between Luo Nan and his believers was no longer shackled by materialization. In fact, Luo Nan had become much clearer on an intrinsic level. He discovered at this moment that his observations on the mental plane had already taken on the mode of a telescope due to the effects of the atrium cyclotron 2 days ago. Through warping and weaving mental curtains, Luo Nan could obtain high-definition information from afar using a special format. This was the most crucial reason for the substantial increase in his mental sensing ability in recent times. Before, Luo Nan had only considered the changes brought to him by the telescope mode. Now he saw that Ink had become an important fulcrum and reference in this mode. It was like a Cepheid variable star in the universe. Astronomers borrowed its light cycle to modify parameters and measure interstellar distances with greater precision. But from Luo Nan's perspective, every detail seemed to have exceeded his requirements for precision after being modified by Ink. So much so that he only had a vague feeling that he was unable to accurately describe it. What sort of reasoning was this? Ink became a bit excited due to the existence of Luo Nan's telepathic thought. But no one else could understand its mood. Peony and the others were on the platform of a tall building in the Forest Wall district right now. They were using viewing binoculars to scan the city district. Ink stood on the binoculars, its claws digging into the outer shell. It was fine if it didn't move, but once it moved, it caused the lens to shake greatly. It was very hard to observe. Peony didn't even raise her head. She continued to use the binoculars to look around, but her slender fingers accurately found the target. She lightly flicked Ink's thick beak. "Mr. Ink, do you have any thoughts?" It carried a bit of childishness, but it also seemed to be teasing. In the classroom, Luo Nan subconsciously rubbed his mouth. He finally recovered from the changes in his ultra-precise perception. He connected the rubber band on Ink's ankle to communicate with Peony. He didn't really know how to deal with this woman, so he simply spoke his coordinates. "Go here." Oh. Peony stopped adjusting the binoculars' direction. She straightened her body and focused her gaze on Ink. She raised her eyebrows slightly, and a rarely seen expression of astonishment appeared on her face. Then she communicated with her soul strength. "You've discovered something? Are you sure? Where's the source of the information?" How could Luonan tell her? He couldn't find any other reason, so he simply shut his mouth and didn't answer. He wanted to say, "Do as you see fit," but he was afraid that Peony would retort back, so he simply had Ink close its eyes and pretend to be confused. Only after doing all of this did he come to a realization. Peony knew that there was someone behind Ink. "Close your eyes, my ass." Luonan was greatly embarrassed. There was no need to mention how to remedy the situation. However, Peony didn't get angry. She snapped her fingers and spoke to the support personnel of Trigate Security beside her. "We're going to change the location. Oh, the effects are great." This was probably the fabled version of "Do as you see fit." Ink still had the appearance of pretending to be asleep. Actually, he had completely absorbed the changes in the outside world and transmitted it back. Luonan's mind exploded with joy when he saw that an elite character like Peony, who was hard to grasp, was going to act according to his thoughts. Then he suddenly recalled that there were still people from the Bloodflame Order there. Soon Haldev and Emoluan would arrive as well. He wanted to warn Luonan, but if he did this, his previous act would immediately collapse. After a moment of hesitation, Luonan found a reason for himself. Let Trigate Security make contact with the Bloodflame Order. Maybe they can get more information? Oh, this idea isn't bad. The work efficiency of Trigate Security was quite high. When they heard Peony say that they had a clue, they immediately dispatched a low-altitude aircraft. They only used 12 minutes to complete the transfer. When Peony and the group of support personnel arrived at the target location Luonan mentioned, they arrived a bit faster than Mrs. Haldev and the others, who were quite far away. Mrs. Haldev didn't move forward after seeing Peony and the others arrive. She just let the on-site management personnel of the Order negotiate with Trigate Security. As for how Luonan knew, the Wraith sign wasn't involved in this. That fellow had already changed his breeder and was currently recuperating at the headquarters of the Bloodflame Order. Luonan relied on Ink. Ink flapped its wings and flew up, circling within the shadows of the tall building. Behind the tightly sealed doors and windows, pairs of eyes stared at this enormous bird. They were either excited or terrified. Luonan himself didn't know that this crow was a celebrity in the recycling stratum of the River Wu district. News of the great battle with Jack a month ago had spread through the ubiquitous criminal channels of this place. The residents who lived here more or less knew that a powerful and mysterious power had crushed the Jack Mafia that originally occupied this place. The main force of the mysterious power was a burly man. This was too lacking in uniqueness, so people took the initiative to choose a more legendary symbol, a large crow. The mysterious power had the special ability to control crows. Every time a crow's cry was heard, a calamity would descend, causing one's mind to go insane and fall unconscious. Jack Mafia's well-equipped sniper squad was easily defeated in this way. In the end, the mysterious power didn't take control of the recycling stratum. The territory of the Jack Mafia was divided among other powers, large and small. However, due to the free and unrestrained behavior of the mysterious power, the surrounding residents, who had been tossed and turned by the gangs for a long time, unconsciously felt a bit of reliance on the mysterious power. Perhaps the mysterious power taking control of the recycling stratum would bring about a completely different and new life? Driven by such emotions, the reappearance of the enormous crow caused a considerable portion of the residents of the recycling stratum to feel a surge of emotion. It also caused a large number of gang members, who had gathered here due to the unknown value of the scene of the incident, to tremble with fear. Luonan didn't understand the cause and effect, but he could feel the actual psychological effect that Ink's appearance brought to the surrounding people. If the mental state of the surrounding people could be said to be a sprinkling of magnetic sand before, then Ink, who was shuttling back and forth between the shadows of the tall buildings, was like a powerful magnet. No matter where the magnetic sand was scattered, it would stand erect, aiming the magnetic poles of the opposite direction at Ink's location. From the perspective of the living starry sky, hundreds and thousands of stars were affected by the gravitational pull of Ink's constellation. They moved in unison, incomparably uniform. At the same time, the stars that weren't affected by the magnetic force were especially eye-catching. A considerable portion of them had a corresponding uniform displacement pattern. It was just that they were incompatible with the system Luo Nan had set up. The source of some patterns could be seen with a single glance. For example, the people of Trigate Security obeyed Peony's orders, and obeyed the arrangements of their superiors. They were like galaxies revolving around a binary star system. There were also some patterns that couldn't be seen. For example, the on-site personnel of the Bloodflame Order didn't even know where the big shots of the Order were. But they were members of the Bloodflame Order in the end. Their long years of activity in the Order caused an extremely subtle connection to exist between their energies and the Bloodflame Will and the First Ablatum. In the living starry sky with Luo Nan's self-format as the core and the clear order, these connections were like pedestrians that violated the traffic rules and randomly entered the flow of traffic. They brought about chaos of varying sizes, but they were clearly distinguishable. Even though the distance spanned by the connections exceeded the limits of Ink's perception, and exceeded the range of the living starry sky. But when all the intruders walked in the same direction, all the connections converged in a relatively fixed region. Luo Nan was naturally able to guess. There was a dark star there that was hard to see with the naked eye. It was releasing an invisible and powerful gravitational pull. Ink circled around twice before quietly expanding its flight trajectory outward. It gradually brought the possible locations of the dark star into the range of Ink's senses. A dozen or so seconds later, a dark nebula that was hard to pry into appeared within the living starry sky. Chapter 390. So mental senses could be used in this way? Luo Nan's train of thought opened up. The clairvoyance mode of the telescope was clearly a sort of systematic clairvoyance. Every believer, including Ink, was a node. They provided perceptual planes and details that could be mutually referenced and supplemented. Although the number of details might not be perfect, they reflected each other. According to the framework of formatting theory, they formed a relatively closed system that covered more and more layers. In this way, all existences that were not part of the system became especially prominent. No matter how minute the reverse arteries and veins were, they would be magnified, making his senses exceptionally sharp. There was no one else like this method in terms of early warning function. Mrs. Halder certainly saw Ink. Perhaps she knew that this crow was extraordinary, but she absolutely could not imagine that there was another person who was several dozen kilometers away, using this crow to observe her. There was another person at the scene who was very sensitive. It was Peony. She must have sensed Ink's abnormal flight trajectory. She raised her head to look. It was unknown how she judged it, but her gaze soon pointed toward the skyscraper where Mrs. Halder was, as well as the relevant floors. From Luo Nan's angle, he felt that there seemed to be a confrontation of gazes between Peony and Mrs. Halder. It was hard for Luo Nan to judge whether or not Peony saw Mrs. Halder, but Mrs. Halder's gaze was certainly locked onto Peony. Well, you're the scapegoat. Luo Nan felt the secret delight of successfully shifting the blame after getting into trouble. He also felt a corresponding sense of accomplishment. This was the first time in his entire life. He wasn't worried about Peony's safety. After all, the most powerful woman in Xia City stood behind her. Mrs. Halder's Bloodflame Order and the Castle Financial Group were admittedly powerful forces in Xia City, but they were still lacking in comparison to Her Majesty Empress Wu. Peony, the person in question, didn't seem to care too much. Or perhaps it could be said that she didn't have the corresponding sense of crisis. She received a call at this time, and the smile on her face grew even more radiant. Her curved eyes seemed to flow with colorful light. Be it the Trigate security personnel beside her, or the Bloodflame Order personnel, they all couldn't help but steal glances at her. It was hard to avoid their emotions from rising and falling. The living starry sky had a reaction. Darling, have you arrived yet? How's my setup? One fatal strike. Peony completely disregarded this. Her mind had already withdrawn from the mission. She allowed her mood to melt into her smile and flow naturally. As long as you're happy, it's fine. No problem. Tonight, everyone's going to turn the heavens high and celebrate your success. He should be her boyfriend, but what's with that doting expression? After the writing class, it was time for the society's activities. Luo Nan was liberated. He was still thinking about the confrontation, entanglement, and communication at the recycling stratum of Shuanghe district. Many pieces of information would not have appeared at the time. Or perhaps Luonan would not have been able to see them even if they had appeared. However, he was certain that both the Blood Flame Order and Trigate Security would hold a meeting to discuss the situation after he returned. It shouldn't be a problem for him to piece together a rough picture of the truth. Seiji had all the benefits, yet he remained uninvolved. It was a bit like a villain, but it did make Seiji feel great. At a time like this, it was none of his business whether others were in a good mood or not. Luonan waited for his car at the parking spot. His mind was pondering over the problem of system perception. It was just as he had understood before. He discovered an excellent early warning method. Though it was still lacking in many ways, it didn't seem difficult to make up for it. All he needed to do was expand the number of believers a bit and scatter them across the various city districts. They would connect seamlessly with each other, forming a closed system. Targets that were not part of the system, especially ability users who possess self-logic, would be more or less accurate. What security and bodyguards did he need back then? Even the Skynet system that covered the entire city wouldn't be as sharp as he was. Even if the Order of Justice's first ablatum, Deputy Secretary General Gong Qi, and other powerful people came to kill them, Luonan would be able to know their positions and coordinates the moment they stepped into the boundaries of Xia City. They would be hundreds of kilometers away, and Luonan would be able to notify President Ouyang and Her Majesty Empress Wu to take to the skies to intercept them, TSK. Just thinking about it was exciting. As for expanding the number of believers, Luonan scratched his head. The streetcar just so happened to arrive. He boarded the car and continued to scratch. He felt a bit subtle. Luonan was certain that he had never truly regarded himself as a god. He had only seen bamboo poles paper. He had borrowed the relationship between believers and gods to describe the various mysteries of formatting theory. That was all there was to it. Therefore, Luonan wasn't like the contemporary secret orders. He didn't deliberately ponder over the so-called doctrines and rituals. Then, he used all sorts of methods to actively expand the scale of his believers. So far he had accepted believers like Ink and the Wraith sign. He didn't care about Rui 1, who was a special example that appeared and disappeared from time to time. His true human believers numbered no more than 3 people: Baze, Xie Junping, and Cat Eyes. Black Tiger Baze was someone who relied on force to survive. His personality and conduct had been polished by the Order of Justice for a long time. He could be said to be plugged in and out. There was no adjustment period. Xie Junping wasn't a person of the same circle. He was muddle-headed and completely unaware. Luonan deliberately played down this relationship and forgot about it. He just left it there and let Xie Junping do what he wanted. As for Cat Eyes, she was probably the only example of a believer that possessed self-awareness and self-awareness. And the entire process couldn't be said to be smooth. Cat Eyes certainly had to bear the responsibility for this matter. But even if she had courted death herself, the series of developments that followed, especially the mental and willpower torment, made Luonan, the beneficiary, feel quite upset in his heart. This was especially true after the format pyramid transformed into a star atlas. The materialized chains disappeared, and a more essential connection became prominent. Luonan inspected his believers one by one, and discovered that Cat Eyes was acting extremely dispirited. Her mental state was worrying. This was absolutely not a situation Luonan wished to see. Luonan sat in the last row of the trolley, his fingers rubbing against his hair. As he pondered, his thoughts unconsciously shifted through the living starry sky. He saw Cat Eyes once more. It was the middle of the afternoon. Normal people worked and studied. Ability users cultivated and completed missions. But what about Cat Eyes? She was sitting cross-legged on the floor of the room. Her hair was messy, and she wore a sleeveless top and briefs. Large swaths of healthy, smooth, light brown skin were exposed. She looked like she had just woken up from a hangover. Her fingers were unconsciously playing with a wine bottle. There were at least a dozen wine bottles around her body. Most of them were empty and overturned. They were a complete mess. Holy crap. If this continued, she would really be crippled. Luonan felt that this was no good. He was impulsive for a moment, so he simply said, How about we have a chat? Cat Eye's figure froze the moment the thought came out. Her boring and monotonous actions came to an end. The wine bottle beside her feet rolled far away. Luonan only remembered when he saw the statue-like figure. He had not used the Hexaear's channel at all. Instead, he had used his thoughts to directly enter. It was needless to say that this sort of method was one of the greatest taboos between ability users, especially mental ability users. From Cat Eye's perspective, this was undoubtedly another stab in her bloody wound. Luonan was embarrassed. He didn't even think about whether or not he should apologize. But then he saw Cat Eye's reveal a strange smile for some reason. She supported her forehead with her hand, pressing against her hairline. She gathered her fluffy hair a bit, and her appearance was a bit similar to Luonan's. It was just that she exuded a serious feeling of decadence and a bit of self-mockery. Okay, but I still have to go teach dancing in a bit. Boss, do you want me to skip work? No need. The class ends at 8 in the evening. No problem. Only after Luonan spoke did he remember that he still had a social engagement tonight. He could completely have Cat Eyes come back tomorrow. But the words had already been spoken. Changing them now would be too passive. He might as well just stick together. Then come to Frost River Reality at Cloud City Water Village. I'll be waiting here. I'll be there at 8:30. The conversation ended here. The conversation between the two did not use any electronic devices. It was purely a telepathic exchange. It was smooth and natural, as if they had done this countless times. Cat Eyes looked as if she had just finished a routine phone call. Her face was apathetic. She picked up a full wine bottle beside her and skillfully opened the cap with her fingers. She blew too hard and the yellowish liquid of the wine overflowed from the corner of her lips. It flowed along her chin, neck, collarbone, all the way to her bulging chest. It seeped into a deep cleavage that could make any man stare blankly. Her camisole was drenched. The contours of her body and the corresponding details were all revealed down to the finest hair. That scene. Luonan's face turned red. He hurriedly cut off his telepathic thoughts. He unconsciously increased the strength of his fingers that brushed past his hair, scratching his scalp until it hurt. Only now did he truly come back to his senses. He really called that sister over. What was he going to talk about? Was he going to talk about taking her in as a believer? I'm very sorry, but I haven't figured out the unfollow function yet. Why don't you wait a bit? Or should I say, girl, since you're already like this, you should obediently listen to me in the future. Warm my bed, make my quilts, dance for my amusement, and serve me well. I'll guarantee you glory, splendor, wealth, and endless benefits in the future. Damn, he was too impulsive. Luonan held his head, dispelling these senseless and foolish thoughts. He faced the roof of the trolley and silently grinned. He didn't know how to evaluate himself. The Hexaear vibrated while he was in a dilemma. Someone from the society was calling. Could it be that Cat Eyes wanted to go back on her word and not come tonight? Luonan, this coward, was already looking forward to it. However, the caller was not Cat Eyes. It was Papercut. Nanster, I'm here. You're ringing and banging here. You haven't finished fiddling with it yet? Huh? Brother Papercut, where are you? I'll be right there. Only now did Luonan remember that he had already made an appointment yesterday. What was it? Luonan only remembered that it was a combat machine used by the control class. It was because he had asked Papercut for his so-called big move. He had been misunderstood as needing defensive measures, and Papercut had taken the initiative to deliver it to him. Frankly speaking, Luonan wasn't too interested in combat machines in the past. Now that he had the dripping sword, there was no need to even mention it. However, Papercut had come over. Luonan took the opportunity to express his gratitude and exchange their experiences with the dripping sword and the activation class. Luonan and Papercut chatted for a bit before another call came in. This time it was Shuele. Nanster, you're done with class. I'll be at gear soon. I'm going to stretch my muscles a bit first. Oh my, thank you, brother Papercut. Luonan heard that Shuele wanted to rely on Sansho training, so he secretly cried out for Papercut's blessing. He hurriedly cut off Shuele's words. Brother Papercut just arrived. He brought a combat machine. I heard it's quite interesting. Let's go take a look together and test out its power. Shuelei was a bit stunned by Luo Nan's words. Brother Papercut is teaching you a new lesson? He had taken Luo Nan's words seriously. Luo Nan gave a chuckle and vaguely brushed it off. To put it bluntly, he was really not interested in close combat. On one hand, he felt that he probably wasn't cut out for it. On the other hand, he was far too busy with his homework right now. From the inside to the outside, from the fleshly body to the soul, from the self to the believers, from gear to the clouds. He wished he could split a minute in half. He really didn't have the energy to open another lesson. He could only let Shuelei down for the time being. Luo Nan arrived before Shuelei. When he arrived at gear, he saw Papercut strolling around the front hall with his hands behind his back, watching how the construction workers operated. He looked like a supervisor at first glance, but that chubby face of his didn't seem dignified at all. Brother Papercut. Luo Nan greeted him and went forward. Let's go to the bar counter in the passageway at the bottom of the lake. The work on the surface isn't done yet, so it's a bit messy. It should be a lot quieter underground. It's fine. Let's go back and try it out. It's better to be a bit more spacious. Papercut waved his hand. He deliberately revealed his left wrist to attract Luo Nan's gaze. Luo Nan saw a black wrist guard wrapped around Papercut's white and plump wrist. It was quite eye-catching. Papercut even intentionally stretched it a few times. It seemed that the material was more flexible and tough, but Luo Nan couldn't see anything else. This is? The flywheel arm. Oh, this is. Luo Nan finally remembered. The combat machine that Papercut said he was going to bring yesterday was called this. It sounded like a metal prosthetic at first glance, but Luo Nan never expected it to be like a wrist guard. It could be bent and bent as it pleased. Flexible metal material? The metal composition isn't high. After all, the vast majority of metal materials aren't suitable for soul strength interference and control. The ratio needs to be very particular. Papercut took off the flywheel arm and handed it to Luo Nan. Try it and you'll know. This thing is quite light and portable. Oh, I've sent over the instruction manual. There's even an instruction manual. Of course, there's an after-sales service as well. Papercut chuckled as he helped Luo Nan put it on. He taught Luo Nan the basics of how to use it. Luo Nan put this thing on and felt that it was different from a normal sports wrist guard. Aside from the material, it was a bit thicker. The feeling of fixing the wrist was quite obvious. Luckily, it used memory material. Luo Nan just needed to bend his wrist a few times to be able to wear it comfortably. Whether it was comfortable or not was not a key indicator for a combat machine. Even Papercut said, "It's light and portable. It's easy to use. You don't even need to be taught. You can learn it with a glance. As for speed, lethality, and so on, they're all average. It's quite interesting to treat it as a toy. I just want you to experience the technique of the control class and see if you're interested in delving deeper into it. Do you understand the instruction manual?" Luo Nan didn't say anything. He turned his wrist and looked at the structure of the flywheel arm when it was bent. He combined it with the instruction manual and observed it carefully. Only then did he discover that when this thing was woven, it was divided into several layers. Each layer was independent, like a deformed fish scale armor. The layers were stacked on top of each other, but they weren't fragmented. There were only a dozen or so pieces. Chapter 391. Luo Nan nodded after looking inside and outside. He followed the instruction manual and pointed toward the jungle in front of gear. Papercut hurried to stop him, indicating to Luo Nan to pay attention to the construction workers inside and outside gear. Let's keep a low profile. Let's walk a bit deeper. Luo Nan hooked his lips into a cold smile. It's fine. They're experienced and knowledgeable. Papercut knew what Luo Nan meant, but he couldn't say anything. He laughed and pulled Luo Nan deeper into the jungle. They didn't walk 2 steps when Shuelei turned from the jungle path. He saw the two pulling each other and was a bit stupefied. Where are you guys going? Yo, Leister, you're here. Papercut was quite familiar with Shuelei. He chuckled and greeted him. Brother Papercut, Shuelei responded. He finally found a reason. You guys came to class. Luo Nan sweated a bit when he heard this. Luckily, Papercut's answer was very vague. We came to inspect the goods. We can go take a look together. What goods? Shuelei wasn't completely connected. Luo Nan's eyes were sharp. He could tell with a glance that this fellow had yet to give up his evil intentions. He wanted to drag Luo Nan to practice Sans Ho with him. Luo Nan even brought a set of Taoist clothes. How could he let Shuelei have his way? He immediately made up his mind. He would rely on Brother Papercut's protection today. He would cling tightly to this thick thigh and make Shuelei embarrassed to force him. His thoughts spun, and he used the reason of trying out the control class to drag Shuelei into the jungle. He turned his head and said, Brother Papercut, everyone's here today. Let's go get together tonight if we have nothing to do. Papercut went, huh? He was a bit surprised. He knew Luo Nan's temperament. Luo Nan could be considered pure and kind, but how could he understand the ways of the world? He had given Luo Nan lessons for over a dozen days, but he had never received this kind of treatment. Generally, fatties were more self-aware. Papercut asked, Why did you suddenly think of this? You didn't invite me specifically, right? Who else? Luo Nan knew that the invitation came too abruptly. He didn't dare give Papercut too much time to think. He chuckled and gave himself more reasons and bargaining chips. Go. We're just playing together. I invited Leicester. Yeah, and in Cat Eyes. Huh. Papercut constantly changed his tone and words today. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to express his muddled thoughts. He couldn't help but ask, Who are you talking about? Cat Eyes. Cat Eyes. Shuelei was also stunned. Could it be that the gathering Luo Nan was talking about was different from the one he mentioned at noon? Luo Nan opened his mouth. He suddenly wanted to slap himself. Today he was a typical case of only caring about his head and not caring about the bottom. He only wanted to slack off, but he ended up piling up more troublesome things. Hey, don't rush to a conclusion. Luo Nan suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He blinked his eyes, and a line of words came out of his mouth. Moreover, he didn't need to fake it. He hemmed and hawed as he said, Didn't you say that she changed professions? Papercut thought that he understood when he saw Luo Nan's slightly embarrassed expression. He nodded at Luo Nan and laughed involuntarily. Don't think that Cat Eyes gave up on all-encompassing sensing because of you? Who told you that? This. Luo Nan averted his gaze. It's me. Shuelei raised half of his arm and obediently admitted it. The source of his information was the gossip circulating on the psychic wave network. It had a deductive nature to it, so it was hard not to feel a bit awkward right now. Papercut looked at these two 16 or 17-year-old kids. He felt that the matter of education was a long way off. He felt a great sense of responsibility for a moment, and he earnestly and patiently explained, It's not called changing professions. It's just focusing on choosing a more suitable path of development. In the past, people looked forward to Cat Eye's long-range sensing the most, okay? You don't need to feel embarrassed about this, but don't spread it. After all, this rumor is meant to trample on people. If things go wrong, both sides will be ruined. Luo Nan and Shuelei obediently lowered their heads and received the lecture. Papercut thought about the meeting at night and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Cat Eyes actually agreed? She doesn't feel embarrassed. Indeed, she wasn't embarrassed. She was dispirited. Luo Nan felt more and more that inviting Papercut to oversee things was a good choice. At the very least, there would be a buffer. They could get through the most awkward period of the early stages. As for how to communicate in depth and eliminate misunderstandings, Luo Nan could only act according to the circumstances. Since Cat Eyes had said this much, Papercut found it hard to refuse. He was worried that these two youngsters weren't good at the art of communication. They might do bad things out of good intentions, and they might really shed all pretenses of cordiality with Cat Eyes. Cat Eyes was quite famous in the society for her eccentric temperament. Since he had decided to participate, Papercut didn't waste his breath. He saved his strength for tonight. He sighed and brought back the main topic. Come. Let's first operate the flywheel arm. Though Luo Nan didn't have much interest in this type of combat machine, he still chose this one when he had to choose between sparring with it and Sans Ho. He immediately roused his spirits and prepared to mobilize his interference power, according to the instructions on the manual. Papercut wanted to teach him how to aim first. The safety factor of this toy is quite high. You won't easily injure yourself, and there are no problems with various postures. But you need to know that this isn't an energy wave. It's too stupid to point your palm forward. It includes finger jabbing and arm stretching. All of these are useless moves. Luo Nan was a bit at a loss from Papercut's words. Then what kind of posture should I use? There's a lot. The most effective method is to throw it. It's like throwing a dart, striking out with a fist, chopping with a knife hand, and so on. Anything works. Luo Nan waved his arm stiffly. Like this? Shuele curled his lips to the side. Zero foundation. Clearly, Shuele already had some judgment regarding the matter of Luo Nan repeatedly avoiding Sans Ho training. Right now he was jabbing at Luo Nan. Luo Nan pretended not to hear her. He first tried it twice, then he began to mobilize his interference power, pouring it into the wrist guard to activate it. As the divine chakra and body chakra intersected and rotated, the heart lamp of the eye's orifice lit up and illuminated his brain. In the past, this would be the sign of the formation of interference force. But Luo Nan's foundation was far too thick. Even if he didn't put much effort into cultivating the internal refinement technique in the past 2 days, he also had the assistance of the Wraith Sign's meteorite descent. Under the urging of many factors, not only was the eye's orifice a small success, but the orifice of the mouth and tongue had also taken shape. It transformed into a spiritual pool of liquid jade, resonating with the heart lantern of the eye's orifice from a distance. In terms of internal training, the mind lamp spirit pool was like the spring sun melting into snow, the cold and warmth stimulating each other. And in terms of the interference of the mental and material planes, after the mind lamp was lit, the spirit pool filled with jade liquid would turn into the highest quality lamp oil, connecting with the mind lamp and helping it burn layer by layer. In this way, it was equivalent to combining 3 apertures into one. The strength of his interference power had increased by more than 3 times. Luo Nan originally wanted to follow the instructions in the manual and increase the control, but now he directly raised it to the max. His arm trembled slightly, and then a long hissing sound rang out. A circular sheet ejected from the middle of the wrist guard. It first spun in midair before suddenly accelerating. It advanced in a straight line through the air with a thud, cutting into the trunk of the large tree in front of him. The entire sheet sank in. Luo Nan noticed that the entire process didn't seem like he was shooting a dart. It was more like he was shooting a missile. The flywheel arm acted as a launching tube. All it did was fling the sheet out. The driving force was what drove the sheet to kill the target. Otherwise, with the sharpness, speed, and trajectory of the sheet, Luo Nan's palm would have been the first to be pierced. The safety settings were very successful, but the power was only average. At the very least, it was a level lower than normal firearms. Of course, it was fatal to normal people, but Luo Nan needed to consider it carefully against ability users. As Luo Nan was thinking, Papercut laughed from the side. This is an emergency shrapnel. It's used to scare people when you meet the enemy in a hurry. You used up all your strength just now, right? Luo Nan still needed to adapt to the changes in interference power after combining 3 orifices into one. He just laughed and tacitly agreed. Papercut continued to teach Luo Nan the trick. Did you notice that the emergency shrapnel just now was shot from the middle layer of many layers of armor? Every single one of them is like this. There is no way that the upper layer will be the first to fire. This is all for the sake of drawing support from the reaction force between them. The friction is sufficient to ignite fire. Feel it. Don't you think this makes sense? Luo Nan still didn't open his mouth. His mind sunk into the inner layer of the flywheel arm. He used his interference power once more to feel an irregular sheet in the middle. It trembled and hummed within the interlayer. It rotated at low speeds under the pressure of the same type of armor. It shifted slightly, constantly accumulating power. Excellent. You're drawing a bow without firing it. Layer upon layer of reinforcement. Nanster, you really do have talent in the control class. Papercut sighed unconsciously as he sighed in admiration. Did he have to watch the rising star of the activation class change professions? Luo Nan followed Papercut's explanation and controlled the increasingly active sheet within the wrist guard. The temperature of the inner layer of the wrist guard was rising, but there was no obvious change in the outer layer's temperature. The shielding effect was top-notch. Xuelei, who was next to Luo Nan, had keen senses. He sensed a few subtleties and came over with some curiosity. He even reached out to touch it, but Papercut slapped his hand away. What if I can't control it and it explodes? Luo Nan rolled his eyes. I think I can still hold on. Then continue. This toy will certainly become more powerful the longer it accumulates power. This was actually true. Luo Nan could feel that the sheet relied on its overall structure to accumulate power physically. It also relied on special materials to endlessly absorb interference power. Clearly, there was something unique about the single structure. The technical content of the flywheel arm was much higher than it appeared on the surface. Papercut spoke faster, introducing the firing mode to Luo Nan. If you want to attack, the flywheel arm itself has a built-in chip. It can be connected to intelligent equipment to preset a flight path, select a special-shaped sheet, and calculate obstacles, air resistance, and so on. It's very good for sniping in complex environments. Plus, we all have the Hexa ear. It saves quite a bit of effort. Luo Nan followed Papercut's instructions and made a wireless connection. Sure enough, an exquisite interface popped up on his retina. It displayed the real-time changing data according to the scene before him. Through the Hexa ear, all operations could be realized with telepathic control. Luo Nan randomly chose a target, and the interface used dotted lines to indicate the available routes. At the same time, it indicated the percentage of power needed for the best effect. Was this like playing a video game? Luo Nan didn't have a good or bad impression of this sort of idiotic operation. He was a rookie. The more complete the auxiliary functions, the more advantageous it would be for him. However, a true expert probably wouldn't like this sort of programmed setup. Papercut added before Luo Nan could finish his thoughts. Also, if you feel that you're awesome, you can choose mental control. This is a test of a person's continuous operation. Awesome people can even have 12 sharp blades fly around their body in unison. It's like controlling 12 flying swords. They can fight in close combat or attack from a distance. They can scare people to death even if they can't kill them. This is the proper way to use it. Luo Nan slightly swayed his arm. Since the flywheel arm was used by the control class, he should place more emphasis on microcontrol. Papercut spread his hands. You can say that, but the actual situation is different. You see, in order to guarantee the structural function, every combination of thin slices has a different shape. Their flight trajectories are different as well. There are also all sorts of splicing combinations. A normal person wouldn't be able to hold on if they didn't use smart equipment to calculate. Maybe architects and extraordinaries can do it, but who would count on them when it comes to that? That's true. Luo Nan raised his hand and fired according to smart mode. The irregular slices were dim but sharp. They instantly broke through the forest barrier of foliage, slicing off the thick branches that served as targets. They charged into the air before turning back. They buzzed as they spun in the air like a miniature chainsaw. Branches and leaves were shattered everywhere they went. The momentum was quite astonishing. Luo Nan fired a boomerang. The irregular slices circled back, their speed decreasing layer by layer. They fell to Luo Nan's wrist like a tired bird returning to its nest. Luo Nan continued to pour in his interference power, and the slices pieced back together. Papercut clapped his hands. Okay, you're getting started. It's just that your operation is too rigid. Actually, no matter if it's smart mode or free mode, you can switch between them. You can change directions at will and increase your power. If you're in combat, I suggest you first use smart control. You can design a good route, and you can add mental control at the last moment. It saves you a lot of effort. It's sudden and flexible enough. The effect of catching your opponent off guard is still there. That's true. Luo Nan continued to practice in the forest. He didn't forget to let Xuelei have a taste in the middle of it. He pacified Xuelei's emotions and divided his mind, so that Xuelei wouldn't jump back to the topic of Sansho training. Time passed quickly, and the sky was already dark. The three of them had enough fun in the nearby forest, so they prepared to return. Luo Nan's wristband vibrated at this time. It was a call from Tianxi. Her tone was a bit nervous. Junior Nan, I'm really sorry. There are some things I need to take care of in the society. Tianxi is doing experiments. We might have to go a bit later. Got it, senior sister Tian. Luo Nan didn't want to give Tianxi any more pressure. He was counting on this senior sister to suppress Mo Peng and the others. Papercut was baffled to the side. Who is it? You're also getting together in a bit? Luo Nan casually said. One of my senior sisters and her little brother. They're coming with us tonight. Outside the circle? Papercut was very surprised. Luo Nan had a guilty conscience from Papercut's reaction. He could only evade the important and dwell on the trivial. It's Tianxi. She's the one who became a hostage at Ocean Sky Cloud City. You've met her before, right? He looked at Papercut's expression and knew that he couldn't hide it any longer. He could only add, there are also two relatives of mine. Maybe there are also their friends. It's a gathering, and it's at Frost River Reality. I'll just meet them face to face. I'll tell them about us later. Oh, you. Papercut really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He reached out to point at Luo Nan again, but he was discouraged before he could open his mouth. You still have to learn in the future. It looks like there are quite a few people this time. Have you booked a room yet? A room? Luo Nan entered a stupefied state. Chapter 392. You're inviting a lot of people. You have to go in and out together. Of course you need a room. And if you feel that the two circles aren't suited to be together, you can book 2 rooms. You just need to run around in the middle. Papercut taught Luo Nan step by step. Before he became the elementary instructor, he never thought that he would be responsible for imparting such basic social knowledge. Luo Nan could not help but feel embarrassed. Speaking of which, he really did not care too much about tonight's trip to Frost River Reality. He just thought that he would go to the game hall and bring people in. How could he have known that there would be such details when it came to entertaining people? It made sense when he thought about it. Last time Mo Chio and Tianxi had a get-together. They had booked a private room. I'll book one right away. Luo Nan was flustered for a moment. He hastily contacted Frost River Reality. He was lucky. Originally, he would not have had the slightest chance with the explosive business there. However, someone just happened to cancel their subscription. He was also a person who had personally experienced the events of Frost River Reality. He actually had a bit of compensatory privileges, allowing him to snatch a medium-sized room. However, it was impossible to realize his idea of booking 2 rooms. So be it. Fat people don't look old. With my looks, it should be enough for me to pretend to be young. Papercut consoled himself with a few words before sighing. Let's go. We're going to wait now. I'll teach you another trick. Since you're the one treating, arriving earlier than the guests is the most basic courtesy. The brand new flagship store of Frost River Reality maintained its high-end image. The venue was set up in Aurora Cloud City. This was the 6th stage of the 6 circular staircase buildings of Cloud City Water Village. It was also the tallest building aside from the main building. Monday was not the busiest time of the day. Luo Nan and his group did not arrive too late. At the very least, they arrived before the evening rush hour created by the office workers. However, Frost River Reality, which had just opened for business, still attracted a large number of players. The tide of students from the surrounding large living areas became the main consumers of this time. The theme of this week's event at Frost River Reality's flagship store was the Wasteland. With the support of reality technology that could pass for reality, the surging stream of people walked from the resplendent modern metropolis into the declining small town. Unexpectedly, there was no sense of incongruity. Frost River Reality, which was decorated with reality technology, was like a starving beast. It swallowed the stream of people in large mouthfuls, seemingly never spitting them out. This business is really explosive. Cragburst clicked his tongue in wonder. Luo Nan and the others had yet to enter. They sat at the Frozen Star ice cream shop that was standard in every Frost River Reality. They ordered 3 drinks and waited for Mo Peng, Mo Han, and the others to come over. The frozen planet also coordinated with the wasteland theme of Frost River reality by covering the entirety of reality. All of the dining cups were replaced with worn-out wooden and iron products. The tables, chairs, and counters were also changed accordingly. Sitting here, if one didn't care about their clothing, would be like entering a vagrant tavern in the wilderness. Oh, if one ordered an iced drink that costs more than 100 renminbi, they would get a vagrant cloak for free. There's only one word: burn. Burn money. Papercut took a sip of his drink and evaluated. The event planner should have been to the wilderness before. The background is pretty good, but it's limited to this ice cream shop. What the hell is that small town? Anyone who dares to build something like that in the wilderness is doomed to be flattened by mutants. As they chatted, Papercut, who was such an honest person, couldn't help but show off a few words, but that was all. They soon gathered together and chatted enthusiastically about the flywheel arm. Papercut was still teaching Luo Nan a few things to take note of. This toy's components are exquisite and complex. It's definitely not the durable type. Think about that emergency shrapnel. It must have taken quite a bit of effort to dig it out from the tree trunk, right? After a mid to high intensity battle, the recovery ratio of components isn't high. As a conventional weapon, the logistical pressure isn't small. Luo Nan wasn't prepared to use the flywheel arm as a conventional weapon. He just wanted to use it to practice his control of interference power after combining 3 orifices into one. It was quite suitable to add a way to adapt. But even so, logistics was a more realistic problem. Right, Luo Nan vaguely remembered Papercut saying that there was an after-sales service. Papercut laughed heartily when Luo Nan asked about this. I was waiting for you to ask this question. Of course there's an after-sales service. You know him, old Jai. Luo Nan was shocked. This is worker Jai's work? Papercut shook his head. He's not the main creator, but he's one of the auxiliary designers. In the beginning, he was also responsible for the OEM manufacturing of some of the components. He looked all around and lowered his voice. Actually, the flywheel arm was a cooperative project between the society and the government. Its main purpose was to research the ratio and structural design of easily interfering substances. Unfortunately, it was abandoned halfway. Most of the research was lost. The flywheel arm was the only concrete result, but it was lacking in stamina. It was impossible to conduct follow-up research. You guys know that old Jai has always been very passionate about these things. Plus, this was the first time he was deeply involved in the research of the society. He couldn't bear to part with it. He took advantage of the fact that the project was off the drawing board to buy the property rights to this toy and change it to handmade. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. Right now, he's only maintaining the after-sales service. He still has to spend quite a bit of money on it. Luo Nan shook his head. It's too hard for worker Jai to do it by himself. Papercut shrugged. So I'm doing some sort of sales promotion for him. The product is free, but the after-sales service isn't good. That's for sure, Luo Nan answered without hesitation. Papercut sighed ruefully. Old Jai is certainly at the expert level when it comes to mechanical design, but his ability talent is mediocre. He doesn't have the support of hard strength. It's hard to be optimistic about him forging a successful ability user weapon. His mood has dropped over the past 2 years. But I don't know what happened when you went last time, but you stimulated him a bit. He's been very excited these past few days. Being excited was good. Luo Nan didn't forget that the dynamo core he took from Gym Master Xiao was still in worker Jai's hands. It was undergoing in-depth research. It would be best if there was progress. Shui Lei had some understanding of worker Jai, but it wasn't as deep as Luo Nan's. Shui Lei had an impression of worker Jai, so he asked Luo Nan in a low voice, "Is worker Jai lacking in soul strength?" Luo Nan laughed when he heard this. This was typical layman's words. "I'm evaluating your strength. I'll say how many kilograms of your fist force is. So, how much strength do you have? Do you recognize that?" Shui Lei immediately understood. "I understand. Soul strength must be measured from all aspects." The society had the 4 dimensions measurement. It included the 4 basic measurement standards of depth, intensity, sensitivity, and affinity. However, it was far from accurate quantification. Therefore, it was hard for Luo Nan to say what the key factor restricting worker Zhai's growth in strength was. After all, soul strength was far too subtle and complex. Papercut swallowed the drink in his cup along with the ice cubes. Talent. 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 Important words can be repeated 300 times. In our domain, if you start off as a blank slate, you won't be able to reach that standard. You won't be able to reach it in your entire life. Old Zhai has some skill, but he's just a bit off. He can't go up no matter what. And as long as he can't go up, many methods of training and growth are meaningless. Luo Nan and Shuelei glanced at each other. Actually, they were a bit disapproving of Papercut's words. Shuelei felt that his own ability was partly due to the guidance of a famous teacher, and partly due to his own solid training. Talent wasn't a decisive factor. Luo Nan thought of his grandfather's formatting theory. If he had talent, he would have followed his grandfather's theory. He would have used medicine to pile up and mold it step by step. Papercut could guess what the two youths were thinking, but he didn't care. Of the 600,000 ability users in the world, almost 90% lacked the corresponding aptitude and could not be truly awakened. They could only waste their time in a state that was neither good nor bad. It was one of the most painful experiences in the world to give light, but to wipe out hope. Without long-term, extensive contact, the two little ones would not be able to truly understand that group. All of this required experience. When their eyes met, the enthusiastic young man and the passive uncle understood each other tacitly. Their magnetic field sizzled. Now that they had the time to chat, Shuelei couldn't help but ask, how is it possible that there are no ways to train and gain strength? The dojo master had once said that the three treasures of essence, breath, and spirit were shared by everyone. When your spirit is full, your chi will be full, and when your chi is full, your spirit will be full. This is a chain that runs through everything. If you don't have enough soul strength, strengthening your body is also a way. Papercut laughed. How is a fleshly body enhancement different from a mental enhancement? The former had a foothold in the material world. As long as one cultivated it properly, they could build up layer by layer and temper themselves inside and out. Even a shabby brothel could one day transform into a royal palace. But the mental plane is illusory, and the activation of abilities usually comes out of nowhere. It doesn't have muscles, and it can't be increased with large amounts of exercise. The main reason lies in the fact that its nature is far too different from the material world. It's impossible to find a point of connection. Even if you find it, there will be a difference between reality and illusion. It's like a chicken talking to a duck. Luo Nan had a pensive look on his face. So you're saying that interference power is very important? Papercut tapped his empty cup. Yes, interference power is extremely important. President Ouyang once said that the current theory of supernatural powers is incomplete. Only by realizing the function of interference can soul strength be incorporated into the experience system that people can understand. Only then can the two most crucial tasks of observation and cognition be realized. Only then can one borrow the foundation of the material world to realize effective growth. The stronger the interference power, the faster the growth. Papercut immediately retreated in defeat when he saw Luo Nan's pure eyes. I know that you're an exception. You're the only one whose interference power is trash in the early stages, but your soul strength can still soar. Formatting theory is truly extraordinary. Luo Nan loved to hear these kinds of words. He immediately smiled until his eyes squinted. However, he didn't believe that this point could reflect the particularity of formatting theory. No. My self-format is also constructed on top of the material world. It is constructed on the special structure of the nervous system. It's not that it doesn't have interference power. It's just that it is very likely to form a one-way channel. I can only use matter to interfere with the mind. The reverse won't work. This will drive the rapid growth of soul strength, but it will also cause a serious imbalance between body and soul. Papercut blinked. He found it strange that Luo Nan actually understood what Luo Nan was saying. What you say is quite reasonable. If I can study and analyze it in earnest. Luonan rolled his eyes. Don't dissect it. I don't want to be a guinea pig. Having said this, he thought of octopus. He had already made some progress with the help of his grandfather's notes and formulas. He didn't know whether or not he could produce some dazzling results. Perhaps formatting theory really did have flaws, but Luonan's own practice proved that these flaws could be overcome. He had already borrowed Jim Mastershio's guidance and coupling theory to turn a one-way channel into a two-way channel. This sort of experience could be completely integrated into formatting theory, making it more persuasive. It could become a hot topic in the inner world, and even the entire world. Right now the momentum was good. Luonan laughed unconsciously. Hey, what are you thinking about? Shuelei saw Luonan laugh foolishly for some inexplicable reason after calling Luonan a guinea pig. Shuelei was a bit worried that something would go wrong with Luonan's mental circuit. Only now did Luonan realize that he had lost control of himself. He hurriedly waved his hand. It's nothing. I just feel that President Ouyang's description is precise. Last time at Frost River Reality. I'm talking about the one at the center of the city. Fairchild said something similar, like observation is order, and the like, but he didn't mention the experience system. President Ouyang's premise is very good. From Luonan's understanding, the so-called experience system should be a set of observations and cognitive results that could be deduced and generated through practice and verification. Ability users, who found it hard to become awakened, lived their entire lives in the material world. Though they possessed a bit of talent for supernatural powers, it was insufficient to correspond with their daily life experiences. Instead, it was easy for them to get lost in the illusory mental plane. They were unable to distinguish between what was extraordinary and what was fabricated. Only by realizing interference and entering the realm of normal human experience could one's soul strength become a real existence. Only then would one be able to abandon the obstacles of one's chaotic consciousness and transform the potential one possessed bit by bit into supernatural powers. Therefore, how important was it to have a stable and long-lasting interference mode? A flash of inspiration flashed through Luonan's mind, and an idea suddenly popped out. After a bit of deduction, he felt that it was a bit complicated, so he simply did it. With a thought, a precise structure was engraved at the interface between the mental plane and the material plane. The condensation ring. The ice cream shop was full of water vapor. In the blink of an eye, beads of water condensed out of thin air and floated above the table between the three people. Whether it was Shuelei or Papercut, they were both very keen characters. They immediately sensed it, and their gazes locked onto it. Papercut was particularly shocked. The dripping sword? My goodness, you're this familiar with it? Luonan waved his hand. Let's not talk about the dripping sword for now. Let's just talk about the condensation ring. Actually, I feel that this might be more suitable for Worker Zhai. Making this thing doesn't require too much interference power, and Worker Zhai also has an amplification device. Even if he loses some precision, Worker Zhai should be able to make up for it with his level. Once he succeeds, he will have a fulcrum that will be constantly. Luonan spoke in a single breath according to his own train of thought. Then he saw Papercut's blank expression that said, "Here you go again." Clearly Luonan's previous words were wasted. Luonan also felt that he didn't speak clearly, so he prepared to add, "What I mean is, Nanster, where are you? We're here." Mo Peng's communication cut imperfectly. Before Luonan's voice could fall, he saw Mo Peng take the lead at the entrance of the ice cream shop, leading a majestic group inside. Luonan instinctively counted, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. 9 people. The ice cream shop was densely packed with people, and it had undergone materialization. It was built to look like a dark and gloomy tavern. With so many people entering in one breath, the space suddenly became oppressive. Chapter 393. Let alone Luonan, even Papercut, who considered himself an etiquette teacher and a rescue expert, felt a bit dizzy when he saw the group of kids charge in. Why are there so many people? He began to consider whether or not he should flee at the last minute. However, his feet had just moved when Shuelei grabbed him. Brother Papercut, you must go. Look at Nanster's face. That was why Mr. Macho hated muscular dogs the most. Papercut struggled to no avail, and could only accept his fate. He shook his head and said, then entertain them first. Don't take it too seriously. Hey, it's time to get up and greet them. Actually, Luo Nan knew to stand up and wave to Mo Peng and the others without needing him to say anything. A group of people moved over noisily. The leader, Mo Peng, was bewildered with excitement. Don't delay any longer. Let's set off immediately. Let's go to Frost River Reality. Wasteland Winter. Luo Nan was still mulling over how to greet people, so he shut his mouth. However, Mo Peng wouldn't let him off that easily. He draped an arm over Luo Nan's shoulder. Those who haven't seen him before should recognize him. This is my little brother Luo Nan. He was a traitor of 6th High School who had abandoned the light for the dark side and ran towards Acumen College. Today is his journey to atone for his sins. He will bear all the expenses. This saved him the trouble of introducing himself. Luo Nan took a deep breath. He was faced with nearly 10 pairs of eyes staring at him. He wasn't nervous at all, but he really didn't know how to take care of everything. He hadn't been able to clearly see everyone's faces up until now. He only saw Mo Han behind Mo Peng, and then his train of thought went astray. Above the table, the condensation ring was still in effect. No one noticed the floating water droplets, but it wasn't good to leave them there for too long. Luo Nan was worried that he would give himself away. So he used his interference power to shatter the water bead and the condensation ring. However, the inspiration that had just emerged faded away. Seeing that Luo Nan's reaction was half a beat too slow, Mo Han gave Mo Peng a sneak peek. She blamed Mo Peng for being too unreliable with his words. Papercut was unwilling to pass on this responsibility. He came out to assist. We have a lot of people. Let's not block the road here. Let's go inside first, and then we can slowly talk. Luo Nan finally revealed a smile. Right. Let's go to the room. The more people there were, the livelier it was. There were many details, and no one cared about a few flaws. The group of pawns moved on to Frost River Reality. The AR guide who welcomed them was a boorish uncle in a tavern. Come on, explorers. Change your equipment before the adventure. Do you have a fixed equipment room? Luo Nan called out to his good luck. He was also grateful for Papercut's reminder. He turned his gaze and locked gazes with Papercut. Then he said, Number 156. Yes, Mr. Luo. I wish you and your companions a good harvest. There were 9 people on Mo Peng's side and 3 on Luo Nan's side. A total of 12 people followed the guided tunnel and entered the room. Everyone was a frequent customer. After entering the private room, they stood in the scanning area to measure and synchronize the data. As a girl, Mo Han was meticulous in the end. She seized the opportunity to pull Luo Nan over and said with a smile, Let's take this opportunity to introduce each other. Coincidentally, a young man and woman of short stature walked up to the scanning area side by side. She pointed at a rather cute round-faced girl. My best friend, Ruan Zihui, and her partner, Tong Hui. Together, they formed the Gray group. Smelly pomegranate, you're finished. The round-faced girl, Ruan Zihui, made a gun gesture with her finger and shot Mo Han through the air. Her boyfriend, Tong Hui, was a lively person. He immediately leaned to the side and pressed his back against Ruan Zihui. His fingers formed a gun, and he struck a pose under the glow of the scanning area. At least half of the people in the room hissed at him. His girlfriend elbowed him back. The two laughed and laughed as they walked out. The atmosphere in the private room became more and more relaxed. Luo Nan relaxed a bit in his mind. If the people who came were all likable, then things would be much easier. A thought flashed through his mind, and he saw a tall girl walk into the scanning area. She wore a black and white cashmere sweater and a pair of skinny jeans. Her figure was very good, especially the lines of her legs, which were especially straight. The visual effect was top-notch. She had a pretty face and a faint smile. She was a bit reserved. Luo Nan gave her a couple of glances and Mo Han reminded him in a low voice, Don't get any bad ideas. She already has a master. I know. Luo Nan felt wronged. He wasn't blind. Before the girl entered the scanning area, She had handed the jacket on her arm to the beautiful blonde man next to her. The Western bloodline was very clear. It was obvious that the two were not related by blood. They could only be boyfriend and girlfriend. Emo-han raised her voice and giggled. Yuqin, our beauty queen. She has already accepted Mr. Turner's pursuit. They are currently in the stage of getting familiar with each other. Hurry up if you want to poach her. Someone screeched. Yuqin pretended not to hear and walked straight out of the scanning area. As for the gentlemanly Turner, he smiled and waved his fist at the person who had just shouted after returning Yuqin's jacket. Hey Luo Biao? Only now did Luo Nan see the person who had just shouted. Unexpectedly, there was a familiar face. The short but well-proportioned and agile Luo Biao was a quirky brown-haired youth. He was one of the few classmates Luo Nan had some friendship with at 6th High. He was also Mo Peng's best friend. Aside from him, everyone else seemed to be in Emo-han's circle. Luo Nan felt that this was quite interesting. This gathering was proposed by Mo Peng. What was going on with this scene? He turned his head and asked, "Were you suppressed today? There's no one here for you. We agreed on a get-together. How can you share your resources with others?" Mo Peng boasted to the skies, but his face fell in the blink of an eye. Fine. Little Pomegranate's mouth is too fast. I'm afraid that I'll go crazy and the entire Mo family will know by the next day. But I never imagined that you would actually dare to bring out the tall and fat combo to deal with me. He was gnashing his teeth a bit as he spoke to this point. Then he changed the topic and laughed mischievously. But tonight, I'll be keeping an eye on little Pomegranate. Let's see what this girl wants to do. Mo Peng's meaning was very clear. Luo Nan was a bit shocked. She has a master? Right now there was only one man and one woman left in Mo Peng's party of 9 that Luo Nan did not recognize. The others either knew each other thoroughly, or were paired up. Then there was only Yu Zheng. He's Yuqin's older brother. He's 2 years older than us. I heard that he seems to be interested in Pomegranate, but Pomegranate's intentions are still unclear. Luo Nan's gaze shifted over. He saw that Yu Zheng was of medium build. His genes were probably powerful. He and his sister, Yuqin, were one handsome and one beautiful. They were both very pleasing to the eye, and they appeared more mature than their age. It was hard for Luo Nan to imagine the scene of Yu Zheng pairing up with the lively and straightforward Mo Han. Luo Nan put this matter aside for the time being and asked Mo Peng, "There's still one more. She's prepared for you." Luo Nan burst into sweat. Prepared for me what? The remaining single girl. She's gentle and quiet. She's a good person, right? Her name is Chiu Pei Pei. She's a good match for you. The remaining girl was just as Mo Peng said. She was gentle and delicate. She looked very pleasing to the eye. But wasn't this a bad match? Mo Peng curled his lips and glared at Mo Han. Mo Han didn't know what the two brothers were talking about, but she didn't hesitate to give them the middle finger. You should go ask Mo Han. I was quite interested at first, but Sister Pomegranate said something like, "Don't have any crooked thoughts. It's not your turn. Luo Biao and I are the same kind of trash. He's even worse than me. Then isn't it clear who she's prepared for?" Luo Nan was speechless. He felt more and more that he couldn't keep up with Mo Peng and Mo Han's train of thought. He could only retreat in defeat. Another call came through. It was from Tianxi. "Senior, you guys came? Sorry, Tianxi and I just arrived." "You're not late. We just came in as well. Senior, you guys just need to go to room 156. Mo Peng's ears perked up when he heard the word senior. He even moved closer. Luo Nan pushed his head away, but Mo Peng had a face full of saliva. He stuck close to Luo Nan. "Senior? Nanster, I knew you wouldn't be so extreme. How could you just use the tall and fat combination to fool me? So you had a backup plan. Then do you know that the tall and fat combination has the most sensitive ears in the entire room?" Luo Nan shot a glance in the direction of Shuelei and Papercut. Papercut pinched his rather large stomach. He had a conflicted expression. Fengshe smiled, but Luo Nan inexplicably felt that something was wrong. His gaze spun around the room, but he didn't know where the problem lay. Mo Peng asked him, "How many more people are coming? Are they all little sisters?" Big sister? You two. Oh no. Luonan finally knew where the problem lay. The medium-sized rooms of Frost River reality were actually the standard of changing rooms. Every person was allocated a suitcase that was arranged in a ring. Aside from storing clothes, the most important thing was to use the system to switch to the most suitable equipment for Frost River reality based on each person's scan. Everyone matched up with each other. However, the medium-sized rooms were made for 12 people. It just so happened that Tianxi and Luo Nan didn't have a corresponding suitcase when they arrived. This was Luo Nan's mistake. He didn't pay attention to the configuration of the medium-sized room at all. There was a knock on the door just as he was thinking about how to remedy the situation. Someone in the room thought that it was a waiter and called out, "Come in." The door opened, and the room went silent for a moment. Tianxi smiled as she walked into the room. She was a bit shocked to see so many people in the room, but there were even more people who were rendered speechless by her arrival. Tianxi was dressed very simply today. She took off her coarse coat and hung it in the crook of her arm. She wore a loose white turtleneck sweater paired with black trousers. She also wore heels of the same color. Her hair was tied into a fluffy ponytail, and a lock of hair slanted across her forehead. She wore light makeup, a classic combination of black and white. She had a bit of experience, but she wasn't deeply immersed in the secular world. Tianxi gave the little sisters in the room an excellent early demonstration of what a beautiful woman should look like in the prime of her youth. Tianxi accurately found Luo Nan's position among the group of people. She sent him a gentle smile, and then she spoke in a perfectly surprised tone. "I didn't expect there to be so many people. I'm late. Everyone, please don't take offense." She lowered her posture, and her smile was the most amiable. Even though she spoke empty polite words, it gave people a great impression of her. Luo Nan, Shuelei, and Papercut could be considered acquaintances, but the eyes of the other men in the room lit up. They completely ignored Tianqi, who followed behind them. Mo Peng exclaimed in surprise the moment Tianxi entered the room. "Wow, Nanster, you really put in the capital. But why do I feel that she looks familiar? Oh, that Tian. Senior sister Tianxi. Last time we were at Frost River reality." Mo Peng was too embarrassed to finish speaking, but Luo Nan had already nodded lightly. Mo Peng's mouth gaped open, and Mo Han came over from the other side. "Nanster, you invited her? I don't think she and brother Chiao Sen got together. How are you going to greet her later?" There were too many whispers. Luo Nan was afraid that he would leave people hanging, so he raised his voice. "Yes, senior sister Tian has taken good care of me at school. I took advantage of this opportunity to invite her out to play. Tianqi also went last time. Everyone should be familiar with her." Tianxi took advantage of Luo Nan's introduction to greet her little brother once more. "This is our first time meeting. Please take care of me." Her gaze flew to Luo Nan after she spoke. "I think I know why brother Chiao Sen didn't get together." Mo Peng didn't keep his mouth shut, so Luo Nan gave him a shove. Tianxi walked over to Luo Nan at this time. Tianqi followed behind her with a strange expression on his face. The atmosphere in the room could not be hidden from others. At this moment, the gap between them could be seen. Tianqi's thoughts were all on his face, like a bulldog's. On the other hand, when Tianxi was invited, she was inevitably embarrassed, but when it came to it, she hid all her negative emotions very well, making people feel comfortable. She apologized to Luo Nan once more. "I'm sorry. I can't get away from the society for a while." No. Didn't I tell you? We just changed our equipment." Luo Nan responded without thinking, but he thought of the trouble he just discovered. He didn't know what to say next. Now he was the one in an awkward situation. However, Luo Nan was open-minded. He had to admit to his mistakes. There was nothing to hide. He scratched his head. "Senior sister Tian, you and senior Tianqi, wait a moment. I didn't count the number of people when I booked the room." To the side, Papercut was simply drunk. It was forgivable to book the room wrongly, and it wasn't a problem to admit to one's mistake. But this fucking blunt and straightforward method. Was it for the sake of showing everyone the history of this otaku cancer? He first slapped the call service button on the wall. His slightly plump body nimbly rushed forward and poked Luo Nan, interrupting him. Nanster mi shuele, and that. Mo Peng, you guys share a suitcase. Let two of them go first. I've already called for a human service. We can scan the equipment directly. It'll be very fast. Tianxi had seen Papercut at Ocean Sky Cloud City before. His build was easy to recognize. She knew that this was Luo Nan's friend. It was very likely that he was someone with extraordinary powers. Naturally, she wouldn't slight him. She immediately pursed her lips into a smile. This kind of situation happens often. There's no need to go through the trouble. Papercut bowed. It's only natural to serve a beauty. As he spoke, he turned to glare at Luo Nan. His meaning was, kid, learn. It was just as Papercut said. There would always be people willing to serve a beauty. Adding Tianqi to the mix wasn't a big deal. Mo Peng greeted Tianqi in a very familiar manner. Tianqi was very cooperative. There's no need to go through the trouble. Big Peng and I can share a suitcase. The two of them were quite familiar with each other. It turned out that the seventh son of the Mo family, Mo Cheng, and Tianqi got along quite well in the field of esports. They had even met Mo Peng a few times. Everyone was familiar with each other, but the more they knew this, the more they didn't understand how Tianxi and Luo Nan, who had never interacted with each other before, could be this familiar with each other. Tianxi and Luo Nan had come over despite the awkwardness. This subtle layer of relationship was like a little bug, drilling into the tips of their hearts and making them itch. Luo Nan was just about to introduce Tianxi and her brother to the others. It seemed that Papercut and Shuele hadn't really mentioned them before. The scene was too chaotic. Suddenly, someone spoke up and circled back to the previous topic. Let's switch rooms. Once these words were spoken, most people turned their gazes in a daze. They found the source of the voice. Yu Zhang. This person had a calm expression as he faced the focused gazes. I bumped into a fellow on the road just now. He's in the middle level here. He specifically told me that if I want to be a bit more spacious, I can upgrade the cabin. Right now the luxury room and area just so happens to be empty. He smiled brilliantly as he spoke. His gaze streaked past Luo Nan and stopped on Tianxi's face. I feel that it's better to meet new friends in an open and bright environment. Everyone will have more fun. It was also at this time that Luo Nan heard Mo Peng squeeze out a sound from his throat. Holy crap! I don't know how many book friends have followed me here from the Netherworld Immortal Way. This book can be considered my famous work. 10 years after the book was published, I finally have the opportunity to publish a simplified version. Right now, the first volume of this book has already begun a pre-sale event at Tmall's Audiobook's specialty store. The first 200 buyers will receive a postcard with my personal signature. If there are book friends who don't mind my crappy handwriting, you can actively participate. Actually, I'm a bit worried that I won't be able to deliver 200 autographed cards. Chapter 394. The atmosphere in the room became very strange. Yu Zheng's smiling face was very vague. The meaning behind his words was also very vague. But the direction of his gaze was very clear. It was enough for most people to fill in the gaps in their minds. Was he pretending to be unintentional to step on the faces of Luo Nan and the others? Or was he stepping on the faces of Luo Nan and the others to show off to Tianxi? The meaning seemed to be the same. In short, he was stepping on their faces. Wan Zihui shot a glance at Mo Han and saw her best friend frown. She giggled and said, "What's the point of changing? We're going to area A, B, and C. The size of the room is of no use." Wow, you're using profanity. Tong Hui made a fuss over nothing. You've already dirted me. Wan Zihui's sudden outburst shocked everyone present. Unfortunately, she wasn't a veteran. She couldn't help but laugh as soon as she finished speaking. She covered her face and squatted down. But in this way, it would prove her words true. Even Tong Hui was dumbfounded. The focus of the entire room had been led astray by her. And Mo Han looked at her in shock. It was just a standpoint. Was there a need to go all out? In any case, Ruan Zihue had used Grey's sacrifice to reverse the atmosphere here. Though she wasn't openly teasing or making fun of them, the men and women were stifling their laughter. They threw the matter of upgrading to the back of their minds. Yu Zheng gaped, but he was unable to say the words he wanted to say. He knew very well that forcefully reversing the atmosphere was too difficult. If he didn't do it right, it would be very hurtful. In the end, he wanted to make a good impression. He didn't want to run into a wall. That's right. Yu Zheng was certain that Tianxi was his favorite kind of prey the moment she came in. She had a sense of propriety. She knew when to advance and when to retreat. She had a graceful bearing. She wasn't very old either. She had just begun to mature. This was the kind he was most obsessed with in recent years. In comparison, though Emo Han was young and beautiful, she had a prickly temperament. If things went wrong, she would torment someone to death. Yu Zheng's gaze lingered on Tianxi. The more he looked, the more he felt that she was to his liking. He had yet to figure out why such an outstanding beauty would be friends with a typical otaku brat like Luo Nan. However, he dared to bet with his eyes that the two weren't that close. Luo Nan's polite behavior spoke volumes. Oh, the first part was a little too hasty. After all, this was the social circle of Emo Han and Emo Peng. If he was too forceful, it might produce the opposite of the desired result. However, once they entered the amusement park, that might not be the case. A smile reappeared on Yu Zheng's face. He shrugged and acted as if nothing had happened. He no longer mentioned the matter of upgrading the cabin. He slowly took off his jacket and prepared to change his equipment. Just then, colorful lights flashed in the private room, followed by impassioned music and a voice in the background. Explorers, I admire your courage. Now let's move on to more dangerous areas. What happened? The equipment is locked. This is an upgrade. Yu Zheng, what the hell are you doing? Ruan Zihue shouted again. Everyone's gazes turned towards Yu Zheng. Most of their gazes were filled with rebuke. No matter what you want to do, this attitude of acting first and reporting later is too unsightly. However, Yu Zheng also displayed an innocent appearance. Half of his jacket had been taken off, and there was still a sleeve hanging on his upper arm. He froze just like that, facing over a dozen gazes with a blank expression. A knock came from the door during this awkward and tense moment. Then the outer door was pushed open, and a young man wearing a perfectly straight suit walked in with a smile. Zangster, it's just an upgrade. What are you hesitating for? At most, it'll be on my tab. I'll act first and report later. Oh wow, you really have quite a few new friends. How wonderful. Yu Zheng's entire face lit up. He never expected that this fellow would play such a trick. Perhaps it was the Shanghai style, or perhaps it was some other reason. But no matter what, Yu Zheng had extricated himself from a passive situation. This was truly a battle where he could raise his eyebrows in elation and turn things around. He tore off the jacket hanging on his arm and took a deep breath. Only then did he walk over with a smile. Brother Fan, you're too fast. The young man surnamed Fan came in. It was clear at a glance that he was an exquisite character polished in society. He hammered Yu Zheng's chest, displaying an intimate attitude. Then he turned towards the room, his smile even wider. My surname is Fan Fanchu. I'm in charge of this branch, so I might be 2 years older. This is the first time I'm meeting most of you younger brothers and sisters, but you're all Zangster's classmates, and Zangster is my younger brother's childhood friend. We're all just strangers. Fanchu spoke quickly, but each word was clear. There are many guests today. If there's any place I've neglected, please don't take offense. I've added a few fruit plates and refreshments to the luxurious compartment as an apology to my younger brothers and sisters. In the future, when you come here, you can look for me directly for matters like reserving a private room. If you can't find one, just mention my name and I'll do my best to arrange it properly. Yu Zheng's heart warmed up when he heard him say this. In the past, he had somewhat looked down on this brother Fan, who had a strong social air, but now his opinion had changed greatly. Brother Fan was indeed a busy man. He picked up the phone in the time it took to say a few words. He smiled and waved to everyone before leaving with quick steps. Though he had come and gone in a hurry, Yu Zheng had already reshuffled the rotten cards in his hand with this trip. He had used a king bomb and 4 twos to play the bottom line. It would be hard for him to lose again. The more confident he was, the more natural Yu Zheng's attitude became. He no longer needed to flaunt anything. He just needed to spread his hands and face everyone, assuming the most magnanimous posture. Fine. I didn't know he would play this hand either. I'm afraid the data has all been transferred. Let's go. It's only a few steps away. Having said this, he faced Luo Nan with a smile. Junior Nan, this matter was an accident. It's been quite a toss. Why don't we make a deal and give me a chance? I'll treat you tonight. Consider it an apology to everyone, and also to express my stance to the seniors and juniors of Acumen College. Yu Zheng's words were spoken beautifully, especially after he had been wronged. The more he lowered his stance, the more it made the sharp-tongued Ruan Wenhui and the others unable to open their mouths. Yu Zheng looked around him after he finished speaking. He made some calculations in his mind. Right now, he should have more or less snatched away Luo Nan's limelight as the host. He could continue to plow deeply and meticulously. Look, senior sister Tian. Wasn't she looking over with great astonishment? Tianxi was truly astonished. She could guess Yu Zheng's thoughts, but she was astonished at how reckless this person was. Though she still didn't truly understand Luo Nan's extraordinary ability, it didn't hinder her from having a basic understanding. If Luo Nan wanted someone like Yu Zheng to die silently, it would only take a mere thought for Yu Zheng to die. Fear couldn't be avoided from Tianxi's heart when her thoughts reached this point. This fear came from her reverence towards a power that escaped the control of society's laws and principles. Luo Nan's current wooden performance was like a mask in her eyes. Perhaps the mask would be torn off in the next moment, revealing the face of the Grim Reaper. She turned to look at Yu Zheng, and he just so happened to meet her gaze. He bowed from a distance with a smile. Yu Zheng thought that he was free and unrestrained, but in Tianxi's eyes he was no different from a rotting corpse. She shivered and subconsciously shifted a bit in Luo Nan's direction. Then, under everyone's gazes, she reached out to press down on Luo Nan's upper arm. She hesitated for a bit, then slid a bit to the side to gently grasp his arm. Junior. At this moment, the eyes of the people in the room bulged. Chaotic thoughts ran through their minds. Of course, Yu Zheng's expression instantly darkened. Luo Nan was very baffled. He turned to look at Tianxi, feeling a bit uncomfortable with her suddenly closing the distance between them. He opened his mouth to ask why. At this time, Papercut suddenly jumped out from the side and laughed. Don't be confused. Don't be unreasonable. The data has already been transferred over. It's impossible to go back. Let's go experience the luxury room. I've never been there in my life. He extended his hand to drive them away. Go, go, go. All of you go. Don't forget your clothes, your personal belongings. Hey Nanster. Finish talking to Tianxi. Hurry up and go over. Perhaps there were many people in the room who wanted to see what would happen next, but Papercut only needed to use a little trick to make this group of powerless boys and girls, including Yu Zheng, whose heart and face were very stiff, involuntarily lift their feet and leave. The room became quiet in a few breaths of time. Senior, what's the matter? Luo Nan's reaction was a bit slow, but he wasn't an idiot. Even though he hadn't completely understood the ways of the world, from his perspective, Tianxi's heartbeat was chaotic right now. Fear was growing, and the hand holding his arm was very stiff. It seemed as if she had suffered a fright, and her mind was very tangled. The reason for this seemed to be because of him? Luo Nan was a lot more open-minded when dealing with someone like Tianxi, who only knew a little. He gradually adapted to the new distance between him and Tianxi. He laughed. What are you afraid of? I am just worried that you'll get angry. Tianxi's voice was a bit hoarse. She had some problems controlling her breath. In the end, she was still nervous. Me? Luo Nan was baffled. I'm a bit surprised as well. Papercut stood at the door and suddenly spoke, startling Tianxi yet again. But when she saw this chubby youth give a simple and honest laugh, the smile lines on his chubby face appearing rather likable, her heart actually calmed down quite a bit. Shuele popped his head out from outside the door. He curled his lips. That you fellow deserves a beating. He's always stepping on people. He's crazy. Papercut chuckled. Nanster usually has a good temper. I know that, but I never expected you to be this calm and collected when you're in trouble. You're not simple. Ha. Luonan was still a bit uncertain. Are you talking about me? Who else could it be besides you? That bro stepped on your face today, and he didn't let it go. I'm really worried that some string in your brain has snapped, and you'll just clean him up like a tank. Motherf asterisk cur. Speaking of which, do you know how hard it was to clean up the scene back then? That bro's entire body went limp. With just a bit of force, his skin and flesh would fall off. It was like he fell into a pressure cooker. Luonan had an innocent expression. He had been busy to death recently. How could he have the leisure to think about the matter of a dead person? Tianxi finally reacted at this time. Luonan didn't seem to have any killing intent. She carefully confirmed. You really aren't angry? Luonan was depressed, and he felt a bit wronged. Did you guys really have to go so far as to kill him just because he said BBBB? What he did was all for naught, wasn't it? From start to finish, he didn't move a single person, including his sister. And then I have to get angry? Brother Papercut, the few lives I've taken are all because they wanted to kill me first, and then they destroyed my mother's work. This doesn't count as indiscriminate killing, right? Of course. Of course it doesn't count. Nanster, you're very magnanimous. Papercut gave a thumbs up. Tianxi felt it was quite odd when she heard this from the side. The words "a few lives" were seriously contrary to normal social logic. Yet Luonan and Papercut spoke of it so casually and naturally. Shuelei's expression didn't change at all. In the end, they were different from normal people. Tianxi's heartbeat was hard to calm down. She had no choice but to take deep breaths to adjust. Luonan could feel it clearly, but he was a bit uncertain when he saw the situation. He turned his head and asked her, "Was there a problem with what I did just now?" How was Tianxi supposed to respond? She had a clever and varied eloquence, but she was completely unable to display it at this moment. She really admired herself. Why did she think of having a private conversation with Luonan just now? It was Papercut who helped her out of this predicament. Nobody had that intention. Didn't they just praise you? I just want to know. Are you sure that kid you didn't move a single person? His tricks are pretty good, especially when that kid fan came over. I don't know what this group of boys and girls are thinking. Tianxi is knowledgeable, but others may not. Luonan especially liked this topic. He immediately laughed and pointed at his own head. Sense it. Papercut was just teasing him. He never thought that there would really be an answer. He was stunned for a time. You can even sense this? Of course. It's very clear. It had to be said that Luonan didn't understand some of the ways of the world, but there were few in the entire Xia city who dared to say that they could beat him when it came to sensing people's energies, let alone in this room. It was just as he said. Yu Zheng was like a banshee that kept hitting a tree in this matter. The living starry sky displayed that this bro's gravity didn't form any effective fluctuations as a dim star. It had practically no real effect on everyone present at the time. Yu Zheng's influence, regardless of the peaks and troughs, never touched upon the level that Luonan needed to pay attention to. He just silently melted into the depths of the vast sea of stars. So Luonan's heart was truly without the slightest fluctuation. He prepared to give Papercut an explanation, but Papercut had already raised his hands in surrender. Forget it. I still need to help you deal with cat eyes in a bit, so I'll leave some brains for you. Let's go to the luxury room and take a look. Hey, the one I smashed at the Fudong store last time. It's also one, right? Luonan grunted. He had a stomach full of words, but he couldn't say them. His mood was a bit down. When they rushed to the luxury room in Area A, they saw Mo Peng's spittle flying from inside. He was talking about a certain person's magnificent feat at the Fudong store. I've definitely never been to this place before, but Nanster should have seen it before. He doesn't like this kind of place, right? Luo Biao was very familiar with Mo Peng's role as a supporting character. The two matched up seamlessly. Mo Peng laughed mischievously. He doesn't like it, but he can't stand bad luck. Last time, the Frost River Reality on Fudong Main Street was attacked by terrorists. It was smashed to smithereens. After the incident, I looked at the police data. Nanster and the others retreated along a route that included the room in Area A. That seems to be the starting point. Huh? Nanster was also a person who personally experienced it? Tong Hui had heard Emo Han mention this before, but he didn't know much about it. He was quite curious. Of course. You don't say. Today's group took up a third of the place. Me, Sister Pomegranate, Senior Sister Tian, and Brother Chi were all people who personally experienced it, but none of us played as big as Nanster. He was in the last batch to come out. Oh right, there's also Shuelei. He was one of them. His dad was the special police captain in charge of protecting the mission. Emo Peng was dancing with joy as he spoke. Luo Nan and Shuelei glanced at each other. They both kept their mouths shut and kept a low profile. Luo Nan wanted to deal with this group of people before talking to Papercut, Cat Eyes, and the others. However, Yu Zheng stood in the middle of the large room with flowing colorful lights and top-notch sound and light effects. All he heard were words like attack and smashed to smithereens. His expression really didn't look too good. A call connected to his wristband at this time. Chapter 395. The caller was Fan Chu. Yu Zheng had just received a favor from Fan Chu and had set up the scene. No matter what, he had to display an unusual attitude. Hello brother Fan, what's the matter? Do you have time to talk? Yu Zheng went into the private room after hearing what he said. In any case, no one was paying attention to him right now. When he reached the suite, he left the door ajar and found a sofa to sit on. Only then did he realize that his muscles had unknowingly tightened. Damn it! How did such a small scene end up like this? Yu Zheng couldn't help but sigh before saying, Brother Fan, speak. Fan Chu said, After I left, I suddenly thought of something. Are there people from Acumen College in your group? Yes, why? Yu Zheng turned his head as he spoke. Speaking of which, it was quite a coincidence. He just so happened to see Tian see through the crack in the door. This beautiful woman stood quietly by Luo Nan's side. She smiled as she listened to Emo Peng's boast. Her bearing and temperament were incomparable. There's a woman. Is her name Tianxi? Hiss. For a moment, Yu Zheng almost thought that his thoughts had been seen through by Fan Chu. He panicked for a moment, but fortunately he quickly adjusted himself and thought that this was probably a coincidence. He hummed twice and said, Yes, there is. Fan Chu's tone was relaxed. How did you get involved with her? Yu Zheng was also probing. He was brought here by a former schoolmate of 6th Middle. When he was promoted, he transferred to Acumen College. What's wrong? Do you have a grudge with Tianxi? Fan Chu laughed exaggeratedly. If I have a grudge with a beautiful woman, then my life is really a failure. It's nothing. I was just asking. You know, I took 2 years of advanced studies at Acumen College. This Tianxi is some sort of cadre in the Alumni Association. I've had dealings with her before. I just remembered. I'm afraid he has completely forgotten about it. I see. Yu Zheng thought to himself. It seemed that this Tianxi was a publicly acknowledged resource in the school. This brother of Fan Chu's had been out of the advanced course for 3 or 4 years, yet he still remembered her. The more resources there were, the more energy it would take to fight for them. However, they still needed to give them a chance to act. There was something that Yu Zheng could not understand no matter how hard he tried. Tianxi was a beautiful woman. She had a good figure. She had a good mouth. She was an influential figure in Acumen College. Why did she put on a completely docile appearance when facing a wooden kid like Luo Nan? Even if they were looking for a spare tire, they didn't have to go this far, did they? At this time, Fan Chu smiled and said to him, Zhengzi, you came at the right time today. I happen to have a few friends from nearby universities. Acumen College and Cloud City Business College have some. Their homes are pretty good too. If you have time, come over and play. I'll introduce you to them. Yu Zheng was still quite arrogant to his bones. He wouldn't agree so easily, so he asked, Who are they? Fan Chu reported 2 names on the other side, and Yu Zheng's eyes lit up. That's right, they were both famous figures in the circle of the second generation. His family was in Xia City. Although he could be considered a rich and powerful family, he was still a bit short of what Fan Chu said. Normally, when they met, it was inevitable that they would try to curry favor and flatter him. He didn't like it, but in this kind of game situation, it was more ideal. All right, I'll definitely go. Brother Fan, help me introduce them. Actually, Yu Zheng wanted to say introduce, but he was affected by his inner self-esteem, so he changed the word. No problem, no problem. Fan Chu laughed heartily on the other side. He was straightforward. Suddenly he said, wait a moment. As if he had some work to take care of. Yu Zheng said, Brother Fan, you go do what you need to do. We'll contact each other in a bit. Fan Chu said that it was nothing, but in the end, he still said his goodbyes. But at the end he suddenly said, Zhengzi, I think it's quite troublesome for you to take care of so many people. How about this? I'll bring 2 people from my side to visit you. I'll give you some airs, and you can return the favor later. Yu Zheng's heart skipped a beat, but he said, that's not appropriate, not appropriate. I should be the one to greet them first. It's fine. Your Yu family's medical business is so big. No one is inferior to the other. The people over there are familiar with each other, but you guys are unfamiliar with each other here. You should at least distinguish between inside and outside. We should give the airs of friends. When Fan Chu said this, Yu Zheng no longer had the strength to resist. He thought of the background and level of this group of people. If they could really come over to offer a toast and a fruit platter or something, his reputation in this circle would be thoroughly propped up. All right, Brother Fan, then I'll thank you first. It's fine, it's fine. Who are we? Fan Chu laughed and hung up. On the other side, Yu Zheng took a deep breath, his heart beating faster. He felt that this was indeed an opportunity to greatly increase his reputation. His thoughts changed again, and he suddenly felt that it was a pity. Unfortunately, there was only a group of poor students in the luxury room. Although they were good-looking, they weren't people of the ordinary circle. In the following scene, it would be best to greet a few friends that he often hung out with and properly disperse. Otherwise, wouldn't this be the so-called luxuriously dressed at night? With this thought, Yu Zheng could no longer control himself. He nestled on the sofa and used the search function of his wristband to check if there were any friends nearby. He just wanted to give it a try. Who knew that he would be so lucky? There really was a group of people right here in Cloud City Water Village. Although they weren't in the same building, it was only a few steps away. After a moment of hesitation, Yu Zheng waved his hand and snapped his fingers. He took out his usual style and contacted one of the people in the group. Hey Oldsu, you're pretty close. Look where I am. Aurora Cloud City, Frost River Reality's flagship store. Yes, the newly opened one. I have a group of little kids here. They're my sister's friends. Accompanying them is annoying to death. The heels of Yu Zheng's toes tapped the ground. He pretended to chat idly for a bit and began to urge. Come over and play. At least there's someone to chat with. Speaking of looks, you know my sister's taste. Ha ha ha, yes, you also know my taste. Alright, come shake them. Shake the car, shake the bed. Shake them if you have the ability. Oh right, those who have designs on my sister should die. Those who steal my prey should also die. Yu Zheng smiled and ended the call. He suddenly clapped his hands. His feet, which had never stopped, stepped on the ground and propped up his body. A warm current seemed to pour into his body, filling him with strength for a time. He walked out of the room with large strides, and began to ponder over what activities to do next. He needed to first build up the atmosphere. For example, he could keep a low profile for now. He could hide his claws and teeth, and let this group of people toss in turn. He could wait for the 2 groups of people to arrive one after the other. Then, he would make a dazzling entrance and forge a golden body in an instant. His lips overflowed with a smile when he thought of this. At this time, he just so happened to hear Mo Peng talking again. Nanster, I saw that the doctor's order is gone when you were scanned. Has your body completely recovered? My condition is fine, Luonan grunted in response. Since your body is fine, let's all go to Area A. The more the merrier. Me? Luo Nan was about to refuse when Mo Peng came over. He lowered his voice. You, me, and Pomegranate. The three of us can easily make up for a trip to the reality battlefield. Our expenses can make up for this luxury bag. Yu Zheng, this kid, is being unreasonable. We can't lose face. Luo Nan blinked. What face was there to lose? The two did not reach an agreement immediately. Mo Peng was a bit anxious. I just wasted so much saliva. It was all used to irrigate the dry land. Don't you have grass growing in your heart? Grow what? Grass didn't grow in Luo Nan's heart, but Yu Zheng, who had just walked over, had grass growing in his heart. If this group of people were egged on by Mo Peng and ran out to play, then what was he going to do with his golden body? Was he going to kneel and lick in the room by himself? Yu Zheng was anxious. He couldn't care about anything else. He rushed forward 2 steps in an attempt to seize back the initiative. Of course, everything had to be packaged with a dignified reason. Since we're in the luxury room, we need to make full use of it. There are many things here that can completely replace the facilities of Area A. For example, the simulation pod cluster. As he spoke, Yu Zheng used the highest level of authority in the room to adjust the settings. He heard the ring-shaped space of the suitcases on the 4 walls ring out with a beep. The high-back massage chairs under the suitcases slid and converged toward the center, forming 2 neat half-moon structures. These chairs have all been connected to the central AI. Combined with the special equipment of the room, we can completely realize a top-notch reality experience. We don't need to go to Area A to line up. We can set up the battlefield and engage in the wilderness, sea soul, and other group battles. Yu Zheng borrowed some advertising words and did his best to promote the place. There were some results. A few people couldn't help but go wow. Disregarding everything else, the visual effects were indeed top-notch. Luo Nan turned to look at Papercut. His meaning was, are you interested? How could I be interested? Without the guidance of professional equipment, the reality effect was a joke for a psychic ability user like Papercut. There was no sense of reality. Papercut shrugged. He knew that Luo Nan didn't have the patience to stay here, so he took the initiative to speak up. You guys go ahead and play. Nanster, Leister, and I will go stroll outside and see what drinks are available. Papercut was just being polite, but he never expected Yu Zheng to tense up. He laughed and said, there's no need to go through so much trouble. There's a cold drink cabinet in the room. It's over there. Drink as much as you want. The cost is included. Besides, aren't there 14 people just right for 7 against 7? Papercut chuckled. Mo Peng retreated at this time, and poked Mo Han in the crowd. Mo Han fiercely chopped down with her palm. Mo Peng curled his lips and dodged the attack. He spoke in an extremely low voice. Hey, are you going to do it or not? Of course. Mo Han responded coldly. She didn't really have any feelings for Yu Zheng before, but she was a girl. Having someone chasing after her would always satisfy her vanity. But reality told her that Yu Zheng wasn't a pursuer. He was a hunter with excess testosterone, and she was just a prey at best. Losing face was a given. Yu Zheng, this bastard, wanted to step on Luo Nan, her and Mo Peng's faces to climb up. Mo Han had never been the type to be bullied. She rolled her eyes and raised her voice. Let's see what everyone thinks first. I want to go to the uncanny valley. Something happened last time, and I wasn't able to play to my heart's content. Today I have to get it back no matter what. Especially Frost River reality. They even said that they left a frightening gift for me there. Who's going to accompany me? Pei? Gray? Chiu Pei didn't have the temperament to refuse people. She let out a few gasps and was subdued by Mo Han. Wan Zihue was worthy of being her best friend. He knew to stand on the same side at the crucial moment. He raised his hand with an innocent expression. Okay. She turned to Tong Hui and acted like a spoiled child. You accompany me. Tong Hui wasn't stupid. He knew that this was the beginning of a catfight. Of course, he had to follow in his girlfriend's footsteps. He seized the opportunity to display his affection. No problem. I'll go wherever you go. Oh, Mo Han patted the goosebumps on her skin as she pulled the adulterous couple to her side without the slightest hesitation. Just like this, she pulled 4 people, including herself. Then she provocatively raised her eyebrows in Mo Peng's direction. As for Yu Zheng, who cared? Mo Peng chuckled, not to be outdone. I think it's better to sweat. I want to go to the wilderness. Luo Biao's stance was very upright. He grinned and said, I also think that exercise is number 1 in this sort of large venue. Mo Peng asked, Brother Qi, what about you? Tian Qi was at a loss. He wasn't really looking forward to the luxurious room's facilities. He was just confused by his sister's overly ambiguous attitude. He really wanted to say, I'll follow my sister to avoid being attacked by wolves. But in the end, his skin wasn't thick enough. He didn't think that Luo Nan, this wooden kid, could do anything. He thought for a moment before reluctantly nodding his head in the face of Mo Peng's cordial invitation. In this way, 3 more people were pulled away, including Mo Peng. Luo Nan's ability user team and Tian Xi didn't need to be mentioned. In just a few words, there were only 3 people standing on Yu Zheng's side, including himself. The other 2 were his sister, Yu Qin and Turner, who took care of their face. Yu Zheng felt his scalp tingle when he saw the situation before him. His mind was blank. He had such a good hand. Why was it going to collapse? How was he going to deal with 2 groups of people coming? Yu Qin was a good friend of Mo Han's, but she felt very awkward right now. Yu Zheng was being isolated step by step. She had no choice but to choose a side. She was angry at Mo Han for deliberately making her brother lose face. She was also angry at Yu Zheng for his inappropriate words and actions. That idiot. Would it kill him to maintain a low profile for a few more seconds? A good hand with 4 twos and 4 twos had been torn apart by him long ago. The most painful thing was that Yu Qin had to find a way out for this idiot brother of hers who had been possessed by an insect. Her mind spun a few times before she suggested, How about this? Everyone go outside and play first. We can fight and dance when we come back. We need to toss and turn in this place to our heart's content. She turned around and hugged Mo Han's shoulder as she spoke, pulling the petite Mo Han into her embrace. Her usually reserved and cold face had a smile on it. Wife, when we get back, let's form a group. Let's beat them up. Mo Han knew that Yu Qin was trying to soften her brother's cheeks, but she saw Yu Qin speak of their previous terms of endearment without any ill feelings. Mo Han knew that this was rare for the arrogant Yu Qin. Her heart softened a bit, but her mouth was still stubborn. You've been having an affair for a long time. Don't come looking for me. Yu Qin lay on Mo Han's shoulder. She turned her head to look at Wan Zihui. If I'm having an affair, I should look for Hui Hui. Wan Zihui sneered. I'll make you Hui Hui. What about Pei Pei? Why, you guys have decided. The relatively simple Chiu Pei Pei had long since knelt down in the face of this open and secret tearing. She hastily shrunk back. Chapter 396. Yu Qin was a famous icy beauty in the circle. It wasn't that she was reserved in speech and manner, but rather that her family conditions were good. She had high standards, and she was usually reserved. But the more she was like this, the more lethal she would be when she lowered her posture and acted like a spoiled child. Mo Han couldn't make up her mind. She stole a glance at Mo Peng. Mo Peng opened his mouth slightly, and his gaze drifted. He had an expression that said, I'm tempted, but I can't say it out loud. The dance battle was very popular in their age group. It was something between a sport and a game. The lighting was cool and trendy, and the design of the movements was very beautiful. It was widely liked by young women, and the superb sound and light effects in the luxurious room made it hard for the girls to resist. As for the boys, how could they refuse such an eye-pleasing activity? After all, everyone was here to play. There was a limit to fighting. The embarrassment they gave Yu Zheng just now was clear enough. Mo Han and Mo Peng's attitudes softened, and the tense atmosphere dissipated a bit. Luo Biao jabbed Mo Peng. Mo Peng knew that he couldn't let Mo Han get off the stage. He could only shoulder this burden himself. He immediately put on a drooling appearance. Okay. Let's go out and have some fun first, then come back and get high. Everyone will have to go on stage later, especially you girls. How was this going on stage? This was clearly getting off the stage. Amidst the annoyance and strange laughter, everyone was finally given a way out. The atmosphere that was on the verge of collapsing was put away. Yu Zheng was like coming back from the edge of a cliff. He was still a bit dizzy. How did things turn out like this? Now that a group of people was going out, he definitely couldn't stop them. Then he could only quickly contact Fan Chu and tell him not to bring people over. Yu Zheng's head was full of questions. He finally sorted out the priorities with great difficulty, but he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned his head and saw the wooden kid called Luo Nan staring at him. Luo Nan's eyes were sparkling as if they were glowing. Motherf *Ker, you look like you're wearing contact lenses. Are you watching me make a fool of myself? Yu Zheng was angry at first. He wanted to glare back, but when he met Luo Nan's gaze, he felt inexplicably guilty. He couldn't bear it, and he turned his gaze away. Papercut was baffled. What are you looking at him for? He's the worst example of destroying a system. Luo Nan's gaze turned to Yuqin after he spoke. This girl isn't bad. As he spoke, he sized up the tall beauty Yuqin from head to toe. Perhaps his gaze was too direct, but Yuqin also noticed it amidst the chaos. She tilted her head, frowned slightly, and turned her head back. On the other side, Papercut was very regretful. He had asked a stupid question that made his mind go blank. However, his curiosity was piqued this time, and he couldn't help but ask, destroy the system? You mean? Nanster, let's go. Let's go. Mo Peng, who had achieved complete victory, was extremely excited. He wanted to drag Luo Nan to the reality battlefield. However, it wasn't easy for Luo Nan to see Papercut take the initiative to mention theoretical research. How could Luo Nan let go so easily? He waved his hand at Mo Peng and said, "Don't mind me. I have something to discuss with Brother Papercut." Before Mo Peng could react, Papercut said timidly, "Actually, it's not." The latter half of his words fell apart in front of Luo Nan's sparkling eyes. Mo Peng did his best to drag Luo Nan away, but to no avail. When he thought about how the design of the reality battlefield was already very difficult to realize, he could only grumble and change his equipment before dragging Robio and Tianqi out. Tianqi looked back 3 times with every step. He wasn't at ease with his cousin's attitude. Tianqi placed all of her attention on Luo Nan. She was completely unaware of her little brother's worries. Alright, this was even more torturous. Everyone split up and left, leaving the luxurious room nearly empty. Fan Chu's grumbles still echoed in Yu Zheng's ears. The difference between this and the previous treatment was like the difference between heaven and earth. He had to endure it and carefully ponder whether or not he should give a call to his friends in the circle of scoundrels. It was at this time that he saw Luo Nan lead a fatty over to the sofa. They chatted in low voices. As for Tianqi, she ran back and forth, mixing drinks and refreshments for them. *CKME. Yu Zheng's brain nearly exploded from the rush of hot blood. Then he was forcefully dragged away by Yuqin. This last bit of disturbance made Luo Nan stare at the brother and sister pair once more, all the way until they left the room. If you wanted me, I would explode too. Papercut found Luo Nan's straightforward gaze a bit unbearable. He could only tug at Luo Nan to let him continue. You said they were demonstrating something. They were destroying an already formed system. Luo Nan took the glass of juice Tianqi brought to his hand. He slowly rubbed it twice in his palm, using this to organize his words. Big Brother used the most straightforward method. He did his utmost to manifest his existence. He used money and connections to frame himself. He forcefully cut in, hoping to use his own gravitational force to make all the stars revolve around him. Luo Nan actually understood. Papercut laughed. He thought he was a star, but in the end he wasn't even an asteroid. Indeed. Luo Nan didn't laugh. His attitude was very serious. The people who came to this gathering tonight can be considered a 2-star system. I, Mo Peng, and Mo Han are the main initiators. We are 2 stars. Brother Papercut, Yu Shuele, and senior sister Tian are mainly pulled by me. The others are mainly pulled by Mo Peng and Mo Han. As for me, Mo Peng and Mo Han, we are mutually pulled by familial love. This kind of system structure isn't stable, but Yu Zheng chose to use the stupidest and most unsuitable method. His money and connections are meaningless to us. For Mo Peng and Mo Han's friends, they lack sufficient impact. Yes, Mo Peng and Mo Han made good friends. Then he was taught how to be a person by our system. But his sister understood how to attack from within the system. She used friendship, the gravitational form of their internal system, to settle Mo Han. She untied her brother's knot. Yeah, the fortress needs to be breached from within. Papercut laughed as he leaned back on the sofa. It looks like you understand quite a bit. So you were just pretending to be naive. Leicester and Miss Tian, you both understand, right? Be careful. Shuele laughed mischievously, and Tianxi pursed her lips in laughter. The atmosphere was relaxed and carefree. Luonen just shrugged. It's just that we don't have any requests. If my request conflicts with Mo Peng and Mo Han's, and the power of this conflict is stronger than the gravitational form of the two-star system, familial love, then this two-star system will likely collapse. At the very least, it will create an unbalanced crack. Papercut's smile suddenly froze on his face. What the fuck are these youngsters thinking these days? He suddenly discovered something. What Luonan said wasn't particularly profound. He just used a few terms to make it more suitable for the general situation. Strictly speaking, it wasn't particularly comprehensive. But this general situation made Papercut a bit uneasy. Was this something a youngster should ponder over? Was this something a normal person should ponder over? The focus of Luonan's thinking was certainly not to discuss today's matter as it stood. Instead, it was to form a general and feasible truth for him. Looking at it from this angle, perhaps Luonan had already formed an abstract system with his surrounding environment and connections? What the hell? It wasn't a problem to engage in theory, but Luonan was basically a 15 or 16-year-old child. Was it really good for him to ponder over such profound and abstract questions of life and society? It was definitely not good. This was what Papercut believed. If Luonan constantly pondered over these questions from a young age, then complex and ever-changing human relationships would become rigid gravitational lines. Lively characters would become ice-cold symbols. This was a large step on the path of being inhuman. Papercut had never personally witnessed this sort of thing, but he had heard quite a bit about it. There were powerful individuals who had unlocked their first-rate supernatural powers early on, and they had even directly become extraordinaries. This was especially true for the leaders of secret orders. The few words left behind in the legends mostly involve this point. The current Luonan really had this tendency. Luonan continued to speak, but Papercut was unable to listen to even half a word. He stared at Luonan from the side. He looked at this delicate and pretty boy who was only 15 or 16 years old. Luonan used a calm and detached attitude to narrate his findings one by one. Luonan strove to filter them out and give them a general meaning. What should have been a scene worthy of admiration, and admiration caused a chill to run down Papercut's spine. A moment later, Papercut suddenly opened his mouth to interrupt Luonan's narration. You call them brother and sister. What are they called? Ha! That pair of brother and sister. What are they called? They're called. Luonan gaped. He really couldn't think of anything for a time. It's over. Papercut closed his eyes. He was at least 50% certain that Luonan was advancing on a path that made people both envious and fearful. Perhaps a new extraordinaire would appear in the Xia City branch in a few years. But this extraordinary would be very different from Ouyang Chun and Her Majesty Empress Wu, who had been tempered for many years. He had this premonition. Papercut didn't know what he should do. After all, he was far too far away from the level of extraordinary. Everything he knew could only touch the surface. He didn't have the ability, nor did he have the qualifications to comment on such matters. He didn't have the qualifications to make irresponsible remarks about the direction Luonan chose. He would have to ask the secretary later. No, perhaps President Ouyang would be more suitable. Papercut's silence didn't affect Luonan's mood. What he needed right now was a listener. Actually, Papercut had misunderstood a bit. Luo Nan's thoughts on the entire system had only surfaced today. The source was the sensing ability of the system he learned from ink. This ability allowed him to see the positive effects of forming a relatively complete and closed system. His train of thought naturally turned to this when he encountered a similar situation. Of course, Luo Nan's thoughts were quite deep. From this matter, he was able to see that the internal structure of the system needed to be more cohesive. A dual-core system was definitely out of the question. The more secretive, the better. The stronger, the better. The higher the level, the better. For example, Yuqin's methods were able to deal with Mo Han. But on Luo Nan's side, the ability user society, friendship, comrades in arms, and other elements were completely meaningless. But these things seemed to be lacking when compared to religious connections. This made Luo Nan think of secret orders. Luo Nan talked nonstop for a long time. He held back a bit when it came to the deep secrets of formatting theory. He didn't care if Papercut, Shuelei, and the others understood or disagreed with him. He spoke everything in one go. He used the process of weaving words to sort out logic and re-examine his understanding of himself. Luo Nan finished the cup of fruit juice in his mouth. Then Tianxi seamlessly handed him another cup of fruit juice. "Can I drink some more juice?" "Yes. Thank you." Papercut groaned in his mind. He finally found an opportunity to interrupt. He didn't care if Luo Nan was happy or not. He waved his hand and said, "Calm down for a bit. Did you come to the amusement park just to chat? You might as well find a tea house." "Didn't I run into one? Otherwise, I would have definitely found one. I still have to wait for Cat Eyes." Luo Nan looked at his watch. It was just past 7 o'clock. "Let's chat a bit more. There's still an hour." Papercut undoubtedly liked this lively and conversational young boy more. He shook his head fiercely. "Stop talking to me about systems. I'm getting dizzy." "Then let's change the topic. Let's continue with the ice cream shop." "Ice cream shop? It's related to Workerzhai. It's related to the condensation ring." Luo Nan felt that his inspiration was gone, so he wanted to communicate with Papercut. From his perspective, there were far too many things that needed to be discussed and researched right now. Any direction would make him exuberant. Tianxi delivered a cup of hot drink to Papercut's hand. Papercut had an excuse when he saw this. "Learn etiquette well. You called Miss Tian over, and then you made her serve you tea?" Luo Nan went, "Ah." He was certain that this was another one of his mistakes. He had taken it for granted that Tianxi came over. This senior sister couldn't let go. She wasn't as easy to blend in as Tianxi. Tianxi was a flower of understanding. She saw the situation and her eyes drooped slightly. "Don't mind me. I'm fine listening to you guys chat." "Well, if it's inconvenient, I can go take a stroll outside." "No, it's not inconvenient." Luo Nan felt that Tianxi was more or less an insider after the incident at Ocean Sky Cloud City. It wasn't a big deal for her to understand a few things about ability users. Papercut could see that Tianxi had the intention to retreat in order to advance. She was doing her best to blend into Luo Nan's inner circle, striving to obtain a favorable impression from Luo Nan. Papercut didn't care about the utilitarian considerations. This kind of behavior gave him the opportunity to operate. "Yeah, it's not inconvenient. It's mainly because there's something wrong with this kid Luo Nan's brain. He came to an amusement park to talk about theory. I'm tired of listening to him. Miss Tian, do you have a place you want to go? I'll accompany you." Papercut stood up as he spoke. Tianxi immediately looked at Luo Nan. Luo Nan finally confirmed the problem of etiquette. He was a relatively obedient student in this regard. He also stood up and said, "Then let's go play for a bit. Last time senior sister went to Area C?" Tianxi looked at the three males in the room and shook her head. "Area A is pretty good." "Then Area A it is." Papercut regained his authority as an etiquette teacher. He clapped his hands and made the decision. He turned to face Luo Nan and said, "I'll teach you one more thing. If you feel that the experience here isn't enough, you can temporarily use the hexa ear to carry out the guidance function. For a specific guide, Look at the gaming area on the branch's main page. The group of people left the room just like that. Outside was Area A. Area A. The minds of the four weren't really on this. They just strolled around. Comparatively speaking, Shuelei was a bit more engrossed. He followed Papercut's instructions and went to the branch's gaming area to learn how to set things up. He put on the helmet that was assigned to him, and sure enough, he saw the results. It's really useful. Papercut curled his lips. You're the muscle type. My senses aren't bad. It's really boring to play like this normally. Shuelei was all the more exhilarated after resolving the chronic illness that had plagued him for many years. He looked all around. He suddenly saw a place and went, "Hey!" He grabbed Luo Nan and said, "Hold on. We're already here. Aren't you going to play?" Luo Nan didn't react. "Play what?" Chapter 397. Area A of Frost River Reality was forever the most bustling area. It might not have the largest number of people, but there were thousands of people running and rolling in the field. There were also the cheers and screams of the enormous number of onlookers. The clamorous sound waves never stopped for a moment. This was the place where reality technology was the most unbridled. Under the guidance of immersion equipment, players would go from the skyscrapers and bustling cities to the dangerous seas and wilderness in an instant. They would struggle to escape from the jaws of the mutants or show off their prowess. In the two-way hypnosis, they would obtain achievements, win respect, vent their emotions, and deliberately seek abuse. But in the end, all they obtained was true pleasure. That's right. Pleasure was something that could be achieved by just secreting dopamine. The experience might not be real, but people were easy to deceive. So who didn't like playing games? The atmosphere of Area A was in full swing. Luo Nan looked at the players around him who were completely engrossed in their own world. He really could not bring himself to refuse. Well, Luo Nan's heart was itching. Virtual achievements, respect, and the like were meaningless to an ability user like him, who danced on the line between life and death many times. However, being able to interact closely with his friends was still very attractive to him. Luo Nan opened his mouth and was just about to agree when Shuelei went ouch and slapped Luo Nan on the shoulder. Shuelei's fist was extremely heavy, but it could not overcome his vexed emotions. "What are you hesitating for?" "Huh." Luo Nan had an innocent expression. He didn't wear a helmet. Plus, do you have any hopes for a rookie? Papercut didn't know if he was speaking up for Luo Nan, or if he was intentionally mocking him. Next, Papercut explained for Shuelei. There were 2 empty seats in the hero seat just now. Leister wanted to snatch a seat, but you guys missed it while you were talking. Actually, there were over 1,000 pairs of eyes staring at you. It wasn't that easy. Shuelei retorted. I heard that the probability of snatching a seat in a luxury room is several times that of a normal room. Maybe he did snatch one? Hero seat? Probability of snatching a seat? He seemed to have heard of it before, but he did not have an exact impression of it. Luo Nan once again felt the deep malice of the normal world. It was Tianxi who observed his expression and went forward to explain. The environment here was noisy. Tianxi spoke softly, so she naturally moved closer to Luo Nan's ear. Her posture was intimate. Luo Nan felt a drooping strand of hair brush against the side of his cheek and his collarbone. There was also a faint fragrance that entered his nose. If he didn't deliberately perceive it, everything would be light and fine, as if there was nothing there. This was very much in line with his aesthetics. Therefore, Luo Nan felt quite comfortable. At the same time, Tianxi also explained the ins and outs of the matter clearly. The so-called hero seats referred to 100 advanced simulators with 6 degrees of freedom in the center of Area A. These simulators were seamlessly connected to the wearable equipment worn by the players. While giving the players a more realistic feeling, they could also allow the players to move more boldly without worrying about being too immersed in reality and getting injured. In addition, these simulators had been upgraded in all aspects, including accuracy, sensitivity, and other control indicators. They had the upper hand in battles, and because of this, the players recognized them as hero templates and naturally flocked to them. But that was the situation in Area A. Every day, thousands of players would fight for 100 seats. The supply and demand were seriously out of balance. For this reason, Frost River Reality raised the spending limit for these 100 seats to the highest level. On the other hand, they didn't accept reservations or bids. They only used the system to do random instant kills. At least in name, they achieved openness, fairness, and impartiality. As for the probability of getting a luxury room or a normal room, it was just a speculation that circulated among the players. The operators had never officially confirmed it. Luo Nan stated his understanding. So even if you want to play, you might not be able to play? Shui Lei sighed. It doesn't matter if you can't fight for the hero seats. In any case. Cough, are you going to play or not? I'm going to play. You lead the way. Luo Nan shrugged and put on the semi-sealed helmet in his hand. He followed Papercut's directions and went to the Society's homepage game area. He learned the temporary guidance mode. After a few rounds of operation, his mental senses smoothly withdrew. He no longer overstepped his bounds, and the effects of immersion grew clearly. He naturally placed his attention on the translucent panel before him. He looked at all sorts of real-time information related to Area A. The screen flowed like water. At the same time, the various AR effects in the surroundings were strengthened. His impression of the amusement park grew fainter and fainter. It was as if Luo Nan had arrived in a shabby little town covered in dust and sand. The streets were crisscrossed, and all sorts of buildings were arranged in a row. All sorts of bars, shops, and training grounds were set off against each other. Even the rusted metal gate that led out of the town appeared in his field of vision. Behind the rusted metal gate was the reality battlefield. Right now they were in a service area. Shui Lei turned his head and looked all around. He searched for the most suitable place to go amidst the complex and realistic AR images. If we can't get the hero seats, then everything else doesn't matter. Let's go. Hey hey hey. While Shui Lei was shouting, Luo Nan saw an eye-catching blood-red message flash on the translucent panel. Every player, please pay attention. Seats 77 and 91 in the hero area are vacant. Get them. Papercut yelled from the side. Luo Nan subconsciously triggered it with telepathy, but he soon came to a realization. This wasn't the Hexa-ear or the psychic wave network. Telepathy was useless here. But in the next moment, an image appeared on the translucent panel. An alloy dagger and a sinister beast limb collided with each other. Sparks flew in all directions. Hot-blooded background music flowed into Luo Nan's ears. There was also a vigorous male voice that spoke like a madman. The cruel battlefield has welcomed a new hero. Look. The door to glory is open. Luo Nan was stupefied in place. Did we get it? Yes. Shui Lei waved his arm to the side. Then he reported the good news to Luo Nan. Nanster, we got it. Today's luck. Ha. The two were already surrounded by special AR lighting effects. One glance was enough to know each other's identities. Just like this, they inexplicably obtained the qualifications for the hero seats. The hero seat snatching duo achievement obtained. Papercut laughed and pushed Luo Nan from behind. How many grannies have you helped cross the road these past 2 days? You lucky bastard. Hurry up and go. There's a time limit for the qualifications to snatch seats. Luck. The problem of probability was a mathematical problem. Using luck to explain it was too rash. Luo Nan was a person who liked to be serious. His brain crashed for a time, and he entered an endless loop. But Papercut pushed him forward and Shui Lei led the way in front. The group of people advanced quickly toward the hero area. In the end, they entered the sealed area amidst the gazes and sighs of envy. Papercut and Tianxi were unable to enter this place. They were blocked by the gorgeous projection curtain wall. The lucky bastard scram. Let's find a place to pass the time. Papercut chuckled and slightly adjusted the position of his helmet. He asked Tianxi, "Does Miss Tian play the game 10 Days in the Wilderness?" Tianxi wore soft armor sensing equipment. Her elbow clamped the helmet. She appeared valiant and heroic under the dim lighting of the game area. She pursed her lips into a smile. "I play it, but I play it more in the mobile mode." Papercut invited her. "I also like to play mobile games. There's a strategy room here, right? Let's go play a round or two. Tianxi's gaze swirled. She didn't refuse, but she didn't agree either. Instead, she raised a new question. She imitated Luo Nan's form of address. Brother Papercut, Junior and the others weren't lucky when they snatched a spot, right? Papercut was all smiles as he said. How could it be luck? They temporarily bound themselves to the hexa-ear. Their telepathic thoughts are triggered, and they have the psychic wave network to transmit and convert signals. It's the same as using an instant kill plugin. Who can be faster than them? This is the advantage of ability users. There were many nouns in Papercut's words. They exceeded the scope of Tianxi's knowledge, but it didn't prevent her from understanding the general meaning. And it was because she didn't understand that she couldn't help but imagine the mysteries within. She was a bit spellbound for a time, but soon she came back to her senses. She was a bit baffled. Then why didn't you say it just now? It's so hard to get a pleasant surprise. Is there any fun in being too realistic? Especially that fellow Nanster. If he continues to develop like this, he won't age prematurely. There won't be any problems with him turning into a theoretical machine. Don't you think so? Tianxi could only smile at this time. Papercut invited her once more. I just checked. The strategy room is over there. Do you want to go? Tianxi had just started, but she found it hard to continue. This was because what she wanted to say was completely unrelated to the so-called strategy room. Papercut turned his head to look at her. Even though they were separated by a semi-sealed helmet, Tianxi still felt an indescribable pressure. It was also at this time that the light and shadow on the projection wall displayed the inconceivable martial strength of the game hero. The gorgeous effect and intense conflict caused players to stop and watch. They even let out cheers. This scene gave her imagination and also gave her motivation. Brother Papercut, can I also? Papercut was wearing a helmet. He probably didn't hear her. He turned around halfway and waved his hand, guiding her to the strategy room. Tianxi wanted to raise her voice a bit more, but this thing called courage was famous for its first flourish, second decline, and third exhaustion. In the end, the words didn't come out of her mouth. She was a bit dispirited. She turned her head to look at the projection wall once more. In the end, she put on her helmet and followed behind Papercut. She didn't know that Papercut, who was walking in front of her, also sighed. After seeing the sky outside the well, how can I want to return to the mud again? But without the talent to leap out in one go, thinking about this matter is just harming myself. With Tianxi's age and bone structure, it was practically impossible for her to obtain any results if she walked the path of fleshly body strengthening, even if she had the guidance of a famous teacher. As for mental strengthening, she didn't have the talent with just a glance, so naturally, there was no need to mention it. Talent. Papercut felt quite bored as he thought this. Could it be that there was no way to find a cultivation method in this world that was open and aboveboard, that grew from nothing, that grew from small to large, that gradually accumulated step by step to 1,000 miles? What in the world was the foundation that this group of ability users relied on? Who could give them a clear answer? Luo Nan's figure suddenly flashed in Papercut's mind. Perhaps only this kind of super-talented freak, who wholeheartedly delved into theory, had the hope of seeing through the dense fog and pointing straight to the truth. However, such an existence was far too unadorable. In comparison, even that vain and foolish Yu Zheng was more like a living person. This wasn't good. It was very bad. Though he didn't have the qualifications to evaluate, Papercut really didn't like this change in his heart. Tisk, I'm such a woman. Papercut continued to laugh at himself, but he still contacted someone through the hexa-ear after walking a few more steps. In the beginning, he wanted to choose He Yuan. After all, she was his secretary. But when he thought about it again, secretary he didn't seem to have too much of a human's aura. And in terms of level, Luo Nan, who could confuse people 5 miles into a fog at any time, might already be a head higher than his own secretary. Papercut switched contacts as soon as his thoughts reached this point. But as he expected, the other side only transmitted a prompt. Please leave a message if you have something to say. I'm going in again. Papercut shook his head. He honestly translated his thoughts into words and transmitted them over. President, I want to ask you about something. It's about the child Luo Nan's personality. After Luo Nan entered the hero area, he discovered that the area where the simulator was placed was like a maze. He was soon led away from Shui Lei by the AR guide. But soon, a conversation window lit up on one side of the translucent panel. Shui Lei's avatar appeared, and he was able to communicate with Papercut. This was the privilege of forming a team after entering the luxury room. People outside the room could only honestly send messages. Nanster, let's not enter the battlefield. Let's first build a room and play around. Okay. Luo Nan was a standard rookie. He was a bit lacking in confidence to immediately enter the most explosive and chaotic reality battlefield. Shui Lei's plan was just what he wanted. His and Shui Lei's good luck began to quickly ferment just as the call ended. Avatars popped up one after another. Some were instant messages, and some were messages. Mo ping bullshit. I've snatched 100 times since last month. Luo Biao. Let's go play with the rainbow ball in a bit. Maybe we'll be able to earn back tonight's expenses. Mo Han. Don't you think it's a waste? Tianxi. Yeah, I just saw this function. Good luck. This sort of experience was comparable to winning the lottery. It spread very quickly in their small circle. Ruan Zihui, Tong Hui, Qiu Peipei, and the others all sent congratulatory messages in a while. Even Yu Qin and Turner, who were in a more awkward position, said a few polite words to express their congratulations. Of course, there was no need to count on Yu Zheng. Luo Nan was a bit disappointed when he walked to hero seat number 91, the seat he had snatched. Even though Shui Lei and the others had given an extravagant explanation of this thing, it didn't look too different from the completely enclosed maglev cabin in the VIP room. Alright, bringing the experience of the VIP room to the public area might count as a move. Luo Nan began to perform a data link with the help of the guide. He was quite familiar with the process. He received Shui Lei's invitation approximately 30 seconds later. The scenery before his eyes immediately separated from Frost River reality. It turned into a square platform that was similar to an arena without any barriers. This isn't the wilderness? Luo Nan was quite baffled. This sort of battlefield construction was a bit too lazy. Who said it wasn't? There are several fighting arena scenes in the wilderness. This place belongs to the Flaming Hill Arena of Life and Death. It's super famous, okay? Shui Lei appeared in the arena. Out of the 4 categories of regular, deep blue, aberration and fantasy, he chose the most realistic regular human hero. Under the effects of reality, he was wrapped in an exoskeleton, but he was taking it off piece by piece. Luo Nan felt ominous when he saw this. While he was in a daze, he suddenly stirred and blurted out, "Change venue." He said it, right? Luo Nan gasped for air. The interference of Mo Peng and the others had an even greater effect on Luo Nan, who was at an absolute disadvantage. However, his current level of concentration was definitely commendable. Even if he had the intention to deal with Shui Lei at the beginning, after losing 10 rounds and getting beaten up repeatedly, his emotions would have changed. Except for the few times when Shui Lei deliberately let him hit him as a demonstration. Under normal circumstances, he did not even touch the corner of Shui Lei's clothes. No matter how natural the result was, no matter how slight the sense of defeat was, it accumulated over and over again, and it was enough to make one furious. Luo Nan's body grew more and more exhausted under the drive of these emotions, but his attention grew more and more focused. Not only was he able to effectively block out the outside world's interference, he also had a clearer perception of the environment he was in. F***CKme. Luo Nan was knocked down by the heavy kick once more. He fell on the stage and was confused. He was more and more certain that there was a difference between the maglev cabin in the VIP room and this 6 degrees of freedom simulator. The maglev cabin Luo Nan used should be a special object for burners and ability users. It had a fine sense of the human body, reaching deep into the mental system level. It was able to observe and influence the operation of billions of nerve cells in detail. Once activated, the maglev cabin could form a corresponding template in the virtual world. It was already very close to the hexa-ear. Activities in the virtual world were mainly driven by the mind. But there was no lack of stimuli and influences. They would all be fed back to the body. The current 6 degrees of freedom simulator was far too lacking in precision. But there was one thing. It could pull the body to a considerable extent. It was probably the legendary saying, "If precision isn't enough, strength will make up for it." It could be said that Luo Nan was an iron coach who didn't recognize anyone. Luo Nan especially followed Shui Lei's request. Luo Nan raised the extent of guidance to the maximum. Under the guidance and control of the device, Luo Nan would punch when the hero punched. He would kick when it was time to kick. And the extent of movement was very demanding. If he failed, the game character's entire body would be stiff. He would only be able to suffer a beating. The simulator also came with a bonus punishment stimulation. It was a simulation of the feeling of being struck. It was unbelievably unrestrained. Heavy blows, tumbles, lacerations, throats, and so on. It was very well differentiated. Luo Nan endlessly adjusted his movements according to these characteristics. And Shui Lei continued to adjust his teaching techniques. From general pointers to painstakingly staring at a set of movements, he repeatedly taught Luo Nan foresight. You must have foresight. You must understand the movements. You must judge the movements. You must grasp the rhythm of your and the enemy's exertion. The rhythm of both sides is conflicting, but it must be combined together. The perfect situation is your peak against my trough. Good. Luo Nan charged forward with a kick, but it was blocked by Shui Lei. The system determined that the attack was effective. The force even caused the game hero to take a step back. Luo Nan seized the opportunity and was about to attack again when the simulator lit up with a yellow light. It was a warning from the system that the user had consumed too much physical strength. Pause. Shui Lei raised his hand to call a halt. He had been paying attention to the state of Luo Nan's body all this time. It was just practice. There was no need to completely squeeze Luo Nan dry in one go. The system's voice came in at this time. It asked Luo Nan if he wanted to log off. This was quite tactful. After all, Luo Nan had only lit up the yellow light because he had consumed too much energy. If the red light were to light up, the system would determine that there was a risk of excessive stimulation. It would simply shut down the machine and chase him away. Shui Lei was getting more and more addicted to being a coach. He was becoming more and more like a coach. Don't be anxious. Take a few breaths. Let's strike the iron while it's hot. Let's do a wave of foundation training. Isn't this the wrong time to train in the foundation? It's fine. Your internal refinement technique is quite good. Your 9 orifices and 6 roots will certainly be sensitive in the future. You don't need to worry about body control. As long as you keep a close eye on it, you won't have to worry about falling into a bad habit that's hard to correct. Education through setbacks is the most suitable method. In any case, this is what the gym master said. In short, you're going to get abused. Luo Nan let out a "heh," but he was still very obedient. He followed Shui Lei's instructions and set the scene to a controlled practice mode. He invited the system's virtual coach to begin consolidating his foundation. It didn't matter if he did this, but a conversation suddenly popped up. Hey, since you're a rookie, go to Area B or C. You're doing basic training here. Are you kidding me? This sentence was just a precursor. Soon a wave of messages came in. Holy crap! There really are such pretentious people. It's true that you guys are rookies, but it's a bit awkward to put it in front of everyone. The audience wants to change the channel. If you can't change the channel, then change the person. These messages were completely different from Mo Peng and the other's good-natured mockery. Luo Nan and Shui Lei were a bit stupefied by these messages. The others in the circle were more or less the same. Mo Peng reacted quickly. You guys set it to public mode. That's not right. Who would be so bored as to search your little battlefield? Luo Biao responded. Hee hee. The information flooded the screen like a waterfall. And the truth was quickly made clear. The reason was not complicated. On one hand, Shuelei and Luo Nan had made mistakes. Neither of them could be considered veterans of reality realm. They did not set up a privacy mode after setting up the battlefield. Therefore, their fight was open to the entire platform. Anyone could see it if they applied to watch the fight. On the other hand, Luo Biao assisted in courting death. This bro had just edited a few clips of Shuelei crushing Luo Nan and posted them on the internal forums of Frost River Reality. The title was Love-Hate Relationship. The content of the video was fine. Shuelei was the main character, and it gave quite a bit of feeling. But the interface was probably not cleaned up properly. Soon, some technical experts recognized the source of the video and called for quite a few people to come watch the fight. However, what happened next greatly disappointed the excited spectators. Luo Nan and Shuelei's teaching battle was already dry. The entire process was filled with P-spots. Now they were doing basic training. It was too much of a mockery to the players who had tried to snatch a spot several hundred times to no avail. No wonder someone jumped out. Damn. These people. Shuelei had managed to trick Luo Nan with great difficulty. Luo Nan was gradually getting into the groove of teaching. How could he give up so easily? It was fine to just listen to the words Area B and Area C. The simulators over there were quite a bit lacking in realism compared to Area A. Naturally, the training effects were much worse. Luo Nan absolutely would not agree to this just based on this point. However, the internet was a place where emotions were surging. There were quite a few people who spoke without any basis. Shuelei was furious when he saw this. He simply replied in the public channel, "We're all here to snatch a spot. Since we're here, how do we play is up to you guys to decide." In terms of raw strength, Shuelei could probably kill 100 opponents by himself. But in terms of a war of words, he was not up to the mark. His opponent simply retorted, "Trash who wants to occupy a spot. Come fight me if you have the guts." The so-called fight for a spot was similar to an arcade game. The winner would go up and the loser would go down. But the problem was that this mode required the support of the system. Otherwise, it would be a foolish act of harming others without benefiting oneself. Shuelei chuckled. "Then you'll need to have a seat first." His voice had just fallen when the enormous words declaring war in blood filled the air. It shook the stage to the point where it shook. That was right. How could there be no good people in a place as chaotic as the hero area? Luo Nan shook his head. "Don't even think about peace." Sure enough, all sorts of information bombarded Luo Nan. More importantly, the blood-red declaration of war came crashing down. The vibrating effect was extremely annoying. Luo Nan wanted to set it to private mode, but Papercut, who had been watching silently, jumped out at this time. "What's there to block? Just fight." "I can't fight." Luo Nan had a clear understanding of his own level. Just based on his performance in the fight against Shuelei, he would be the master of being oppressed. He wasn't a masochist. Why should he? Papercut was so happy that he bent over. Luo Nan's current distressed and tormented state was to his liking. Luo Nan was like a normal 16-year-old youth. Right now, Papercut only wished for the world to be in chaos. He immediately began to act like a senior expert. "It's not pure fighting. You youngsters lack experience. You practice in a rush. Your goals aren't clear. It's hard to avoid twice the effort for half the result." It was rare for Papercut to speak in such an old-fashioned manner. However, Shuelei and Luo Nan were very happy to listen to the opinions of a veteran ability user. Leister just said that he wanted Nanster to first train his eyesight. It doesn't matter if he has high standards for a moment, right? Luo Nan acted as a witness. There was this line. Shuelei had no objections. Then it's settled. If eyesight was the first priority, then doing movement training and basic training would cause suspicion of being distracted. He must be working hard on both sides. You should have taken it as a secondary course in the first place. Shuelei tried to maintain his authority as a coach. We have to focus on efficiency, right? Since he wanted efficiency, he might as well let Nanster practice long-range heroes. Don't worry about anything else. Just aim at a moving target and focus on interrupting the opponent's rhythm. Gradually adjust the long-range and close-range attacks. Try a few rounds, and I guarantee that you'll be able to train your eyesight. No, I mean your eyesight. At that time, combine it with practice, and you'll see the results? Shui Lei was a little shaken. Knowing oneself and knowing the enemy seems to make sense. Luo Nan saw through everything. Brother Papercut, you clearly want us to team up and fight that group of people. Papercut didn't hide it at all. Nonsense. Against a bunch of kids who don't know their limits, there's nothing else to say. We never abuse ourselves, we only seek to abuse others. Isn't that right? It could be said to be straightforward and clumsy incitement, but it made the young people in the small circle roar in response. Let's go up and crush them. Let's go up and crush them. Crush them. This group of bad friends didn't care if they would crush them or be crushed. There was a good show to watch. Soon, a huge number of messages flooded the screen. Shui Lei let out a long sigh. He knew that no matter how effective Papercut's suggestion was, the Sansho training he envisioned was impossible to continue. Since this was the case, there was no point in being conflicted. In any case, he was already furious. Fuck. Let's go. Shui Lei's actions were even more straightforward as soon as he spoke. He directly chose the public battlefield, and he chose the fight for position mode. At least 30 people responded at this moment. And the system sensed the relevant information. It automatically matched the infinite slaughter environment, before handing it over to all parties for confirmation. F***CK. Has the system been targeted by a super administrator? 2 peaches kill 330 warriors. It's going to explode. It's going to explode. The so-called infinite slaughter environment meant that within the next half an hour, all the participants had to completely eliminate their opponents or endure this period of time. Only then would it be over. Looking at the same situation, at least 20 people would be eliminated. This way, the other spectators would be the fishermen who reaped the benefits. The success rate of snatching positions would be explosively high. The shamelessness of the system exceeded the expectations of the majority of the people involved. However, the current situation was quickly becoming a public event. Under the watchful eyes of the public, very few people would cower. In the end, only 3 people chose to shrink back. The remaining 32 people were all swept into the public battlefield, taking up a third of the entire hero area. At this moment, the surrounding spectators in the hero area, and even the entirety of Area A, were about to explode. They cursed the system with righteous indignation as they tightly gripped the Fight for Position button. They stared closely at the live broadcast. As soon as one person fell, they would begin to fight like mad. Chapter 399. When the uproar erupted in Area A, Yu Zheng had drunk a round of wine, and had been forced to drink quite heavily. Now he was in Frost River Reality's VIP room, repaying a favor he hadn't used. Interpersonal relationships were like this. Lips touched, phone calls connected, big or small, were favors. His family's stall in the luxury room had been broken up, and he had lost the chance to show off. He had to come here himself to apologize and express his thanks. Of course, this was also because in this circle, no family was inferior to his. They were the ones he needed to seriously curry favor with. For this reason, he specifically had Fan Chu prepare high-grade fruit platters, drinks, and the like. He lowered his attitude and visited the VIP floor. Tonight's back and forth had already pretty much worn down his arrogance. Admittedly, there were cold and warm people in this circle, but the host was still quite close. Yu Zheng had once heard someone say that Zhu Maoxuan, the president of Yunda Business School's elite society, had a good appearance but a violent temperament. He was known as the Butcher. But perhaps because it was their first meeting today, he couldn't see where he was violent. Yu Zheng could see that today's main character wasn't actually Zhu Maoxuan. Instead, it was a young man with the same surname as him. He was introduced as Zhu Ling, Zhu Maoxuan's older cousin. Zhu Ling was around 30 years old. He had a buzz cut and looked rather neat. He didn't like to talk. In this place he still didn't touch a drop of alcohol. Occasionally, he would sweep his gaze over. His gaze was calm, and not a bit of emotion could be seen. Yu Zheng didn't make any further conversation. He couldn't stay here for long. After a round of drinks, he left. But he didn't leave immediately. He waited outside the door for Fan Chu to come out. He wanted to ask for specific information and clarify the focus of the following exchange. At this time, someone passed through the corridor and walked shoulder to shoulder with Yu Zheng. As soon as they met, Yu Zheng felt that the person was familiar. He was afraid that he couldn't recognize him, so he sized him up. The person across from him sensed something and turned his head. His brows furrowed, and he looked somewhat unhappy. Yu Zheng was afraid of angering him. He hurriedly bowed and laughed. Third young master who? Are you the border shepherd's third young master who? Last month at Celestial Crystal Biology's banquet. The other person interrupted him. Who are you? Yu Zheng took a deep breath and smiled. Hello, third young master. I am Yu Zheng. My father is Wuxia Pharmaceuticals Yu Qi. Oh, Wuxia Pharmaceuticals. Your distribution business was pretty good last year. Hu Huaying smiled. She clearly had a young face, but she brought out a rigid social attitude. She politely shook hands with Yu Zheng. Clearly, he didn't want to talk about it in detail. Yu Zheng had just finished a round of toasting and had worn away his arrogance. With the stimulation of alcohol, his courage had grown quite a bit. He took the initiative to strike up a conversation. Third young master, are you here to play with your friends? I don't know which room it is. I'll pay you a visit later. Maybe if there's a chance. I'm here to pick up a friend. I won't be staying for long. At this time, the door to the VIP room next door opened. Fan Chu flashed out and was shocked to see two people standing outside the door. When he saw their faces clearly, he was even more shocked. Young master who? Hu Huaying saw that Fan Chu was dressed in work attire and made a sound of acknowledgement. She had no intention of continuing the conversation and left directly. This time, Fan Chu looked at Yu Zheng with a slightly different expression. When Hu Huaying turned the corner of the corridor, he asked, You and young master who? We chatted a bit at the cocktail party. No one would care about this kind of cost-free boasting. Yu Zheng naturally wanted more of it. Fan Chu nodded and pointed at the door behind him. He said in a low voice, If we meet again in a moment, don't mention young master whose name. Yu Zheng was astonished. There's something between them. Nothing. Just don't bring up other side issues. What Fan Chu said clearly wasn't true. Yu Zheng was a bit disappointed with this. In fact, he had hoped to further communicate with Hu Huaying. Although the Hu family was an upstream manufacturer, their business was mainly to order biological raw materials for major pharmaceutical companies. However, as one of the few A-rank suppliers of Sky Crystal Biology, the Xie family and the Hu family had a close relationship. This layer of relationship had to be included. If he could take the opportunity to get to know her today, that would be ideal. What a pity. Fan Chu saw through most of his thoughts. He took the initiative to pull him a bit further away and whispered, These two circles don't touch each other. Young master who is in the business circle. Young master Ju is in the military and political circle. The people in this room might not have much net worth, but behind them are all powerful and influential. Do you see that Lieutenant Colonel Zhu Ling? He just transferred from the City Defense Army to the Coastal Defense Army. His military rank was even promoted. His future is limitless. Lieutenant Colonel. Yu Zheng jumped in fright. When they were introduced, the other had only reported their names, but not their positions. He was only in his early 30s, yet he had reached such a rank. Wouldn't he be aiming for a general in the future? That's the Lieutenant Colonel. But this one arrived later. I heard he was eating at Changlu Pavilion upstairs. He heard young Master Sun was here, so he came to take a look. Fan Chu's wristband suddenly vibrated. Seeing the contact, he was stunned. He turned around and pushed the door open. Young Master Sun, you were looking for me? Just as Yu Zheng was feeling curious, he heard a voice from inside. Little Fan, call Yu Zheng back. This tone was firm. Fan Chu was stunned and hurriedly said, Zhengzi was just chatting with someone outside. He didn't go far. The voice inside paused and then said, All right. Invite him in. Yu Zheng had long since recognized Zhu Maoxuan's voice. It would be a lie to say he didn't have a grudge against this kind of attitude. Not to mention the tone, if he hadn't spoken with Hu Huaying outside the door, and was already downstairs, what would he become if Zhu Maoxuan brought him back with a single word? But the affairs of the world were like this. One set of words in front of people and another set behind their backs. In addition to the difference in status, it was normal to not pay attention to one's words and actions. Yu Zheng had done no shortage of similar things. He quickly adjusted his state of mind, tidied up his external equipment and clothes, and pushed the door open. "Brother Sun, you were looking for me?" Zhu Maoxuan stood up with a laugh. He hadn't yet spoken when a gang of drunkards in the room began to shout. Fuck, he accepted the challenge. It's those two. Kill them. Torture them to death. For a moment, there was a hint of a crowd surge. What happened? Yu Zheng was a bit at a loss. Zhu Maoxuan very intimately wrapped his arm around his shoulder and went to the edge of the most lively area. This was the central area of the VIP room. In the middle was a three-dimensional projector, which could also be used as a strategy room. The periphery was surrounded by a circle of maglev cabins. Some had people inside, some were empty. Although the overall scale couldn't compare to the hero seats in Area A, the technology was a generation ahead. Each had its own merits. The liveliness of the hero area was being broadcasted in real time here. Zhu Maoxuan didn't need to explain. Yu Zheng more or less understood the cause and effect of the situation after a few more glances. Even if there were some things he didn't quite understand, he could understand most of it through the message records of the room's ally system. Then he felt like he was in heaven. Shuelei and Luonan had both snatched hero seats at the same time. This probability was certainly due to the bonus of the luxury bag. Dogs hit luck. Dogs hit luck. And I lent it to them. Yu Zheng had the urge to immediately leave the room. Unfortunately, he really couldn't do this sort of unreasonable behavior. He didn't know what his facial expression was like, but he knew that it definitely wouldn't be good. Moreover, he still didn't understand why Zhu Maoxuan had called him back. He could only try asking, "Brother Sun?" Zhu Maoxuan still had his arm around Yu Zheng's shoulder. He turned his head slightly, and the overly intimate physical contact made Yu Zheng feel quite uncomfortable. His aura weakened a bit. "I heard Fan Chu say that the two people who snatched the seats are your friends?" Seeing Zhu Maoxuan's expression, Yu Zheng instinctively felt that things weren't good. He wasn't willing to take the blame for Luonan and Shuelei, so he responded very honestly, "I just met them today. They are relatives of my little sister's classmate. They're both at Acumen College." "Oh, they're at the same school as Tianxi." Tianxi? He also knew Tianxi. A certain string in Yu Zheng's heart was plucked. He wanted to turn his head to look at Fan Chu, but he was unable to move because of Zhu Maoxuan's oppressive body. Soon, that feeling was annihilated in front of Zhu Maoxuan's masked smile. Yeah, Tianxi was invited by them. They should be quite close. When the last sentence was added, Yu Zheng seemed to hear the snigger of a demon in his heart. The resentment that had been accumulating in his chest for a long time was suddenly vented. But soon, a different kind of pleasure was born. Like sparks buried under the ashes of grass, Zhu Maoxuan patted his shoulder again, his eyes flashing. "I say, these two guys don't have eyes. They don't have any face. They provoke public anger and still refuse to repent. If Acumen College is filled with these kinds of people, then it's pretty much done for." The true colors of the legendary butcher began to appear, and they came without any concealment. Yu Zheng felt very uncomfortable in his heart, but he had already loosened his mouth. He didn't have the qualifications to say anything. He could only stare blankly and say nothing. But Zhu Maoxuan still wanted him to continue expressing his position. For this reason, he used a very intimate address. "Zhengzi, you don't mind teaching these two little guys a little lesson, right?" Yu Zheng nearly blurted out, "I don't mind," but he still had a bit of basic self-respect. When the words reached his mouth, his shoulders stiffly shrugged. He feigned a casual response. "I don't mind. As long as my little sister doesn't embarrass herself too much, it's fine." Zhu Maoxuan laughed loudly as he patted his shoulder. He used a lot of strength. At this time someone else shouted, Fuck, the system is cheap to a certain level. It's loading an infinite killing environment. It's taking advantage of the situation to shuffle the cards. Zhu Maoxuan turned his head and scolded. What the hell are you afraid of? The VIP room is just AFK for half an hour. If you want to go, hurry up and drive them back. We'll go to that private room over there to have fun. Yu Jing stood to the side, becoming more and more embarrassed. Zhu Maoxuan took his hand away and turned his head to ask Zhu Ling, who hadn't spoken much. Brother, you're not coming to have some fun? He didn't hear a response. Perhaps the other side had just made a gesture, probably refusing. Only then did Zhu Maoxuan say to Yu Jing, it's a lively time, so don't leave. There aren't many people here playing in the wilderness. There are still empty maglev cabins. You'll have a bit more fun. It wasn't like Yu Jing hadn't played in the VIP room's maglev cabins. He really didn't care. But since Zhu Maoxuan had offered an invitation, it was hard for him to refuse. He hesitated and said, my peripherals don't match. It's fine. Rescan. Oh wait. Little fan, there's a compatibility mode, right? There is. Fan Chu didn't look for a technician. He personally came to test it. At this point, Yu Jing couldn't say anything to refuse. He pinched his nose and said thanks. Under Zhu Maoxuan's gaze, he entered the maglev cabin. He sat in a moderately spacious seat. His body was comfortable, but his heart was completely uncertain. What did Zhu Maoxuan want to do? No matter how Yu Jing struggled, Area A didn't lack for explosive topics tonight. Over 1,000 people were watching the scene of cursing. There was also the gambling that had been opened on the spot. All of this placed this battle of infinite slaughter on a fiercely burning bonfire. With so many people watching, there was no lack of sharp-eyed people. At the final loading stage of the environment, many people found something unusual when they saw the list of names. Fuck, there's even the VIP area mixed in. I was wondering why there were over 30. So it's just a bunch of nouveau riches making up the numbers. Like this, they'll squeeze out at least 5, 6, 7 spots, right? 20 or so is enough. Come on, let's have a total annihilation. The VIP can open a fantasy breed. That's a boss template. Sweep the trash and kill the boss. At this time, who cared about the final result? It was fine as long as they quickly gave them a good time. Before, they were the lucky ones that made people envious. They were the focus of attention. Now they had become the objects of amusement. No matter if it was positive or negative, they would gladly endure it. This was the era of eyeballs, the era of entertainment. Luo Nan, who was in the center of attention, had a strange sense of vanity. Perhaps it came from the resonance of the emotions of the masses. It was a subtle group mentality. At the same time he saw through his own thoughts, he laughed out loud and switched hero characters. Without much hesitation, he chose the ace firepower player of the Earth Corps, Haya, who had fought with Zhang Yingying on the ship-blocking mountain. Under the current circumstances, being a heavy-armored firepower expert was certainly not the best choice. But this was the only character Luo Nan could be said to be familiar with. This was the only one. A few seconds later, this sturdy senior officer carried the mechanical dog, Newbie. They were teleported to the cracked red earth of the wilderness. This was already a public battlefield. Shuelei had been teleported to an area 7 kilometers away from Luo Nan. He was madly dashing over to join them. Today they were the public enemies of the world. They would certainly be the targets of everyone's firepower. If they were to separate, it was very likely that they would be rubbed against the ground by this group of players. Shuelei's reaction wasn't slow, but he couldn't resist the magic of luck. The distance between the two was really too far. It was extremely difficult to quickly join forces. From the results of the FireEye platform scan, Luonan could see that there were people charging over to intercept them. They even spoke on the public channel. Purify the environment. Clean up the trash. Clean up the trash first, then communicate. This was the naive type. There was also a group of people who remained silent and concealed themselves. They were cautious and vigilant. This was the economic type. They didn't want to make a loss. But at most, they would fire guns and set off firecrackers as soon as they entered the arena. They would go on a killing spree. This was the casual type. If someone were to question their purpose in coming here, they would definitely retort back with a single sentence. What's the point of blindly talking about a game? I'm happy. Yeah, it was so complicated. Wasn't it tiring? Luo Nan's mind didn't have a fixed plan. He didn't think about success or failure. Ever since the game environment was matched and the battlefield of slaughter began, San's boxing practice ended. He just came here to pass the time. His consciousness fused into the character of Haya, and he brought Newbie along as he walked forward. But he was a bit far from the center of the battlefield. The movement speed of the heavy firepower gunner was also very moving. When all sides were moving quickly, he didn't know how long it would take for him to bring the first enemy into his range of fire. In this small circle, Mo Peng and the others hated that they couldn't personally participate. They were 10 times more excited than Luo Nan. The group of people screamed, "Taunt! Taunt! Ha! Voice control! Give Newbie the order." Luo Nan did as he was told. Then he saw the large mechanical dog that carried 2 rounds of ammunition. It barked and ran to the front. It turned around and raised one of its mechanical legs. Then it peed. Of course, the liquid that rushed out was certainly a special chemical reagent. According to the system settings, it reacted with the red earth and emitted an eye-catching yellow smoke. It rushed into the sky and then turned into a distorted dog face that deserved a beating. Haya, the hero character, also followed the established procedures. He turned the thick gun barrel in his hand and scattered the bullets into the air. He loudly announced, "Targets, walk to your final destination in the trash." To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 400. F***CK. How shameful. Luo Nan never thought that it would have this kind of effect. He could not help but curse. Mo Peng and the others were all laughing in their small circle. At this moment someone exclaimed, "Who's online again?" Luo Nan did not pay attention to the follow-up of this topic. Everyone on the battlefield had noticed his existence due to the effects of the taunt ability, regardless of whether they were naive, economical, or casual. Most of them gathered over here. Luo Nan was not stupid enough to wait for people to come over. He searched for the nearby area most suitable for unleashing his firepower. Disregarding other factors, a hill was enough. He chose a good position at the top of the hill, and followed his old method. He erected a platform, maximizing his firepower. Then he waited for the various people to arrive. Noob. Over 1,000 spectators who witnessed this scene had the same thoughts. Absolutely noob. Choosing a heavy firepower user in this environment was already a noob choice. Luo Nan did not have any companions to protect him. He set up his stance in an extremely conspicuous position. He was treating himself as a target. The effects of the taunt smoke were quite good. A target entered the FireEye platform's firing range in a short 30 seconds, and was captured by the search radar. The radiation of the electromagnetic waves alerted the enemy. The enemy reacted in time, and made evasive movements. Luo Nan did not hesitate at all. He used the default manual mode and pulled the trigger. Too early. Mo Peng, Tianqi, and Luo Biao screamed together. The short hill in the distance was flattened by the bullets. Smoke and fire rose everywhere. The visual effect was quite good, but after a wave of bullets rained down, the results were practically zero. Luo Nan continued to fire since he did not hit. Mo Peng could not help but shout, "Can you move your finger away from the trigger for a bit?" Before his voice could fade away, the enemy was the first to panic amidst the bullets that filled the sky. He made a meaningless dodge, and was hit by a stray bullet. He froze for a moment, and then he was taken away by the chaotic gunfire. Luo Nan muddle-headedly obtained the first kill just like this. The background sound was weak and powerless. First blood. It was like a moan. But area boiled over because of this. The unexpected elimination brought unexpected opportunities. It was unknown how many people pressed the snatch button at this moment, hoping to become the new lucky one. Mo Peng choked on this result. Then he determined. He drowned. Look at the ammo reserves. Blacktooth's core Fire Eye platform was built on a large weight-bearing exoskeleton. Although his movement speed was slow, he was also one of the standby characters who carried the most ammo. There were 3 of each type of ammunition. Including the one on Newbie's body, there were a total of 4. The total weight was more than a ton. But Luo Nan's bold fighting style had already consumed a quarter of his ammunition base. That was equivalent to 1/16 of the total ammo was gone just like that. And this was for a similarly clumsy rookie. He still had to face close to 30 enemies. If he used this method, he would definitely run out of ammunition and food. Noob, remember to leave a bullet for yourself. Otherwise, you'll be jumping into a ring of fire. The so-called jumping into a ring of fire was a term used in the wilderness. The general idea was that one would lose the ability to fight back and be humiliated in public like a circus animal. There were all kinds of weirdos in the game, and Mo Peng was really afraid that his brother would encounter such misfortune. So he was practically shouting at the top of his lungs, "Shoot! Shoot!" The real enemies were already closing in at this time. There were 5 or 6 people who entered the firing range of the Fire Eye platform one after another. These people weren't stupid. They spread out and closed in from different directions. For a time, the search radar alarms rang out incessantly. Luo Nan turned his head in all directions and roughly assessed the situation. Then he didn't say anything. He just directly started fighting. The Fire Eye platform radiated a beautiful fan-shaped trajectory. Even though the battlefield was set to be daytime, it was still extremely dazzling. Shooting in all directions. Well, Luo Nan was quite receptive to suggestions. He used burst fire, but the speed was too fast. What difference was there from shooting in all directions? In order to keep up with the tempo of 6 targets, Luo Nan even brought out Blacktooth's most powerful individual weapon, the electromagnetic sniper cannon. Along with the crackling sound of electric currents, most of the precious special ammunition was fired in the blink of an eye. The spectators in Area A fell to the ground in laughter. He can't run. He's a super noob. In just a few breaths of time, 2 base numbers of ammunition were poured out. Everyone watching couldn't help but gasp in admiration. How bold. But it wasn't just the other side that couldn't do it. Luo Nan reaped a double kill amidst the sweeping trajectory of the electromagnetic sniper cannon. The powerful electromagnetic sniper cannon directly blasted a mutant into pieces. At this time, some people could see that Luo Nan had a single bright spot amidst the mess of game skills. His control of the bullet point was pretty good. His coordination ability was adequate. There was practically no way he could fly into the sky or dive into the ground. Otherwise, even with the support of the Fire Eye platform, it wouldn't have been that easy to obtain a double kill. The problem was that there really wasn't enough space. The number of enemies gathered in the surroundings was still increasing due to the previous taunt skill. The inefficient method of attacking in all directions wasted too many opportunities to control the tempo. So much so that there were 5 enemies that entered within a range of 500 meters at nearly the same time. This was originally an effective attack zone for the Fire Eye platform. But under the interference of many parties, Luo Nan's hands and feet were bound. Though the other side didn't have heavy firepower, they still had long-range professions. Luo Nan's Fire Eye platform, which couldn't be moved, was the best target. Bullets began to streak past his body. Some exploded on the platform's defensive armor, causing sparks to fly everywhere. Some of the equipment was damaged. Whether it was Mo Peng, Tianqi, or Luo Biao, none of them had the energy to do anything right now. It took a long while before they managed to grind out a half-dead sentence. Let's first attack long range. Luo Nan still listened to their advice. He completely ignored the attacks coming from all directions. He concentrated his firepower on his own, hitting half of the 3rd base of ammunition before finally submerging the target. A triple kill. And it was an achievement of consecutive kills. The system's voice became deep and powerful. Haya has activated the killing mode. Okay, at least he didn't lose out on this tortoise punch. Mo Peng and the other staff officers didn't know if they should feel relieved or sullen. Luo Nan asked them for help for the first time at this time. What do we do with Haya's close-range attacks? This terrible question of sharpening a spear at the last minute made Mo Peng fall backwards in anger. Close my ass. He can play with you however he wants to when he's close. Switch targets. Hurry. Switch targets. The closest opponent was already 100 meters away from him. It was a deep blue walker. It was an exoskeleton that possessed both strength and beauty. One couldn't see the rigidity of a machine at all. The deep blue walker launched a snaking maneuver, drifting about. It was obvious that this was a veteran. The FireEye platform's radar was unable to lock onto the deep blue walker effectively. Luonan could only rely purely on manual operation at this time. But with Luonan's ammunition consumption, he might not be able to touch the deep blue walker, even if he used up half of the base of ammunition. Luo Biao sighed in despair. You can call it GG. Haya doesn't have a close-range attack. Luonan didn't use his ultimate skill of submerging bullets. Instead, he sank into the pit of close-range attacks. He could only lower his head to look for his equipment. Mo Peng's eyes burned with rage as he watched. He hated that he couldn't just reach out and seize control of the FireEye platform. In the end, it was Tianqi who pointed out. There's a hand cannon mounted on the right leg. By default, it's a burst shot, but it needs to be changed to a single shot. Otherwise, the recoil will be too strong. Luonan simply tossed aside the hindering electromagnetic sniper cannon. He reached out to touch the outside of his right thigh, and the corresponding device was triggered. Sure enough, a sinister hand cannon appeared in his palm. He simply took it. At this time, the deep blue walker had already entered the 30-meter range. It began to push and accelerate, breaking through the sound barrier in the blink of an eye. F***CK. I can't even lift the gun barrel. Luonan really didn't lift the gun barrel. Instead, he just pointed it diagonally at the ground and fired a series of bombardments. The gun barrel, which was big enough to fit an infant's fist, pulsed slightly. The ground exploded into dust and smoke, flames and liquid. A miserable hiss could be heard. The messy red earth suddenly swelled up, and a twisted and broken arthropod screeched as it struggled out. This consumed the last of its health, and it fell to the ground, unable to get up again. Haya kills people like flies. Who can stop him? The system's voice forcefully reached a climax. Whoosh. The gasps of surprise from the spectators of Area A were like the wind blowing across the prairie. They pressed the overgrown emotions into a similar shape. Giant mole cricket. There's actually such a sinister person. But he's dead. Did you see that? The radar didn't give off any warning. It didn't matter what species it was, or which player was driving it. This person was able to deceive the spectators, who had the omniscient view. This was admirable. But the result was that he was blasted into mush by the hand cannon. He died a miserable and sullen death. But how did he discover it? The intense advancement of the battle didn't wait for the spectators to sort out their doubts. The supersonic deep blue walker had already pounced over. The alloy blade pointed forward, and the format of fire circulated on it in a cyclonic fashion. Cyclonic blade. This was already close to a fantasy martial technique. No one had ever seen it used in reality. The might of this blade could be said to be unstoppable. The blade flashed, and the defensive armor of the FireEye platform was directly split into two. It was softer than tofu. As for Luonan, he fell backward. His exoskeleton helmet cracked, and he cut an extremely sorry figure. But the moment he fell, the hand cannon, which had been pushed up by the powerful recoil, naturally lifted up. The special ammunition burst forth with sparks. Another burst of fire, and the remaining half of the ammunition in the magazine was emptied. At such a close distance, there was no reason for the bullets to miss as long as the trigger was pulled. The deep blue walker let out a pained cry. The collision at supersonic speeds was quite painful, even with the exoskeleton neutralizing the impact. Luonan borrowed the recoil to pull apart the distance. When he landed, he just happened to pick up the electromagnetic sniper cannon he had thrown down. He raised the gun and took aim. The deep blue walker endured the intense pain in his chest and performed a classic evasive maneuver. At the same time, the muzzle of Luonan's gun sprayed out a fully charged metal pellet. The heavy pellet pierced through the joint of the deep blue walker's head and neck. Its trajectory deviated slightly upwards, causing the head and half of the chest to explode. Soul Strike. The system's voice exploded. Pentakill. The unstoppable Haya has filled the trash bin with the corpses of his enemies. Luonan let out a breath, lowered the gun barrel, and chuckled. Other modes of action were hard to grasp, but Luonan had made Quantum Corporation one of his imaginary enemies for a month already. How could he not be working hard? Besides, he had watched the Deep Blue Walker fight before. He truly understood the classic movement modes of this toy. He had grasped the rhythm just right. Area A nearly exploded amidst Luonan's smile. Luonan's series of actions just now. Step shot, flying recoil, abandoning gun, taking gun, soul strike. He had killed 2 people in succession within 5 or 6 seconds. Let alone Mo Peng and the others, the entire group of spectators in Area A went silent for a moment. Then they exploded. F***ck me. What's going on? Motherf***ker. We've been tricked. I'm a noob. I'm his ancestor. 5 empty spots. I didn't get a single one. The chaos in Area A didn't affect the progress of the massacre battlefield. No matter how beautiful Luonan's actions were, he had only killed 2 people. The following enemies couldn't see the marvelous scene. They only knew that the target was motionless and the barrage didn't start again. This gave them even more encouragement, making them rush forward with even more urgency. The FireEye platform had suffered an attack from the Deep Blue Walker's Cycle Blade, and most of its functions had been crippled. It was currently undergoing self-repair with great difficulty. Luonan held a cumbersome electromagnetic sniper cannon in his hand. He also had an empty hand cannon. His future prospects were bleak. In just 5 seconds, another player rushed forward. He also chose the mutant species. Coincidentally, Luonan was quite familiar with it. It was the enormous wasp-like Feng Huang. Back on ship Lanshan, Zhang Yingying had chosen this hero character at the very beginning. Luonan really didn't have any other choice right now, but he didn't pay any attention to the approaching threat. Instead he whistled. This was the system's default function. It was the signal for newbie to reload. Reload your bird's egg. Down. The player, who had victory in his grasp, announced loudly in place of the system. A dazzling blade light appeared in the next second. The player's lower back was chopped off along with the poisonous needle. It was a fatal blow. The blade light vanished, and a majestic figure wearing a minimalist exoskeleton armor stood there like a mountain. Shui Lei had arrived. No one could see how he arrived. In a short 2 to 3 minutes, he broke through the encirclement, crossed a distance of 7 kilometers, and killed his way to Luonan. Shui Lei had already killed 3 people in the time it took to fight and run. He had silently activated his killing mode. Of the 34 people who had entered, 10 had already been eliminated. 8 of them were the results of the 2 of them. Some of the thousands of spectators even forgot to seize the opportunity to grab a seat. They watched the live broadcast in a daze. Their minds couldn't wrap around what was going on. Papercut was probably the calmest of all the spectators. From his perspective, this kind of result was only natural. Perhaps a month ago, Luonan's other qualities were at the level of an ordinary person, aside from his terrifying accumulation of soul strength. But as his cultivation progressed, his soul strength returned, and the imbalance between his body and soul was gradually smoothed out. He was undoubtedly in a period of rapid transformation. His absolute strength was limited by his physique. It couldn't be considered outstanding, but his endurance, balance, coordination, reaction speed, and other indicators had all exceeded the scope of an ordinary person. The foundation of a skyscraper was compared to a few simple rooms. Even if the height was about the same, their essence was completely different. Whether it was shooting randomly or wasting ammunition, Luonan had been observing and capturing the rhythm. Otherwise, he would have been able to kill the enemy 3 times in a row from a distance of several hundred meters. Did he really think that it was luck? This point was most evident in the instant he achieved a pentakill. Though his opponent had entered the realm of supersonic speed, their reaction speed was a light year apart. They were 2 completely different worlds. However, there was one thing that Papercut really didn't understand. He simply asked, How did you discover that giant mole cricket? I sensed it. Luo Nan was calm now. He slowly reloaded through the robot dog newbie and answered as if it was a matter of course. Hee, the sixth sense of a geek. Do you want to compete with us, sisters? Emohan mocked him mercilessly. Papercut didn't understand it so superficially. Sensed it. Luo Nan was in the virtual world, and he had received guidance. His soul strength was restrained, and layers of electronic signals were transformed. What the hell was he supposed to sense? Chapter 401. It's just a reaction. What else could it be? Luo Nan's answer was very brief, but he wasn't lying or brushing it off. His mental senses had been withdrawn for now, but his senses on the living starry sky level still existed. From his perspective, the surging emotions of the people around him were superficial and passionate. They were like the floating dust in the galaxy. They were affected by the self-format, and they revolved and fluctuated. Luo Nan didn't have the time to study them for now, but there were some particularly clear targets within them. Because of the clear directivity, they posed a threat to him, so he naturally sorted them out. The level involved in this reaction was not lacking because of the conversion of electronic signals. It could be said that the early warning senses formed by a closed system were applicable to a wider and deeper area than expected. If he didn't hurry up and build it, he would be letting down this discovery. This was the thought that flashed through Luo Nan's mind as he slowly reloaded. By the time he finished reloading, the situation on the reality battlefield had already completely reversed. Luo Nan and Xue Lei worked in harmony. Close-range defense and long-range offense. Xue Lei cut down the nearby targets like he was chopping melons and vegetables. Luo Nan, who was a bit further away, became more and more familiar with the corresponding rhythm. Most of the FireEye platform was damaged, and the search radar was ineffective. But there were still two weapons that could be used. Pure manual operation, coupled with a clear sense of direction, gradually upgraded prediction, and super strong reaction ability, formed a shooting precision that left one in despair. Luo Nan used 3 bases of ammunition during his pentakill. Then he slaughtered 4 more, but he didn't even use half of the base. The cold harvest made the vast majority of the combatants despair. The system loudly exclaimed in admiration. What a godlike man! Haya has already turned the wilderness into a landfill. You're the trash. A certain trash substitute, who was laboriously moving on the battlefield, couldn't help but curse the system back. In the next moment, a metal bullet pierced through his chest, blowing him up in midair. 10 kills. Luo Nan relied on this head to complete his 10 kills. The system simply let the entire battlefield shine with red light. It was like the surging waves of a sea of blood, rolling endlessly. Super God. Super God. The incomparable Haya. All mortals tremble beneath his feet. There was no need for special effects. The entire area A was greatly shaken. Exclamations, curses, and cheers converged into a surging sound wave that engulfed this space. It must be said that Luo Nan's extreme counterattack was really super cool. Even though everything happened in the blink of an eye, his coordination and reaction speed that far exceeded a normal person's allowed him to fully stretch his limbs, making him appear very relaxed. And all of this was projected onto the real battlefield through the feedback of the hero seat's electronic signals. It was also secretly supported by the game effects. The feeling he gave others was that he was calm, confident, and had plenty of spare time. Next, with Xue Lei's cover, he reloaded at a moderate pace, controlled his pace, and took their heads one by one. He looked quiet and cold, and he hit the girl's G-spot. Carefree screams rang out incessantly. Even Ruan Zihue, Qiu Peipei, and Tianxi in the Alliance channel were full of praise and excitement. Why didn't I see this before? This scheming man. Mo Peng's heart was burning again. In the past, it was the fire of impatience, but now it was the fire of jealousy. Robio was also scratching his head. I remember that he used to be a super noob. It didn't seem like he was faking it earlier. Fine, I'm impressed by his acting skills. Just as Tianqi was about to express his emotions, he received an inquiry from his cousin. Tianqi, Is there anyone else in the room who's in the battlefield? Of course not. There are only a few slots. Damn it, I was so focused on looking that I forgot to fight for all the empty slots in front of me. Tianxi's mind had yet to recover from the shock, and she only cared about feeling upset. Tianxi asked, "No? Who said go online just now?" Perhaps it was because girls were more attentive, but Emohan also responded. That's right, I remember someone saying that. I was right. Tianqi finally remembered that a few minutes ago, his mind had been completely occupied by the intense battle, and he had no time to pay attention to anything else. When Tianxi reminded him, he found it strange. He went back and flipped through the records, and soon he found a clue. There's really someone in the battlefield, but he's anonymous in the Alliance channel, and he's offline. Hey, do you have to deceive yourself like this? Who is it? Come out and claim it yourself. Just now most of the people in the Alliance channel have spoken. Who's the one who hasn't? Mo Peng intentionally spoke in a gloomy manner, but soon he was unable to hold himself back and laughed. No matter who it is, go and defeat a student Haya. I'm talking about you, student Shuelei. You can only watch from the sidelines. You can't rely on numbers to win. Which youngster these days was an idiot? Even if Mo Peng left a thin layer of window paper, who wouldn't understand with just a bit of thought? Yu Zheng, this person, really ran into the reality battlefield. Judging from his silent attitude, what he was thinking must be very subtle. Luo Biao was a bit puzzled. He's a VIP too. He couldn't have booked another room, right? The thickness of Yu Zheng's skin had already been tempered. Even though he was mocked coldly, he pretended not to see it. He maintained his silence from beginning to end. It was because of his attitude that Yu Qin and Turner, who were still occasionally interacting with each other, entered an awkward state of silence. On the reality battlefield, Luo Nan suddenly put away his gun and said, "Let's retreat." As he spoke, Luo Nan gave up on the fire control platform, which had already been reloaded with ammunition. He only took his hand cannon, the electromagnetic sniper cannon, and a small amount of ammunition. He turned around and left. Shuelei didn't utter a word. He covered Haya from the side. After abandoning the Fire Eye platform, Haya no longer lived up to his reputation as a heavy firepower expert. His movement speed was quite increased, and he ran madly all the way down the hill. They had just left when a powerful light suddenly flashed in the distant horizon. It was as if a fragment of the sun had been thrown into the mortal world. With just a flash, it smashed where Luo Nan and Shuelei had been. The ground shook, and a pillar of fire erupted from the top of the hill. The abandoned Fire Eye platform, as well as the surrounding corpses that had yet to be refreshed by the system, and the traces of battle, all melted away within the light of the flames. Oh my, a mid-range particle cannon? Area A was in an uproar. As spectators, the most basic preferential treatment was the enjoyment of an omniscient view. As the perspective of the broadcast switched, everyone could see a dazzlingly cool-looking bird-shaped machine 5 kilometers away. It had already raised its wings, and the large metal wings reflected the sunlight. The brightness continued to increase, becoming resplendent and dazzling. The particle cannon just now originated from this, and now it was charging power once more. There was absolutely no such weapon platform in the real world. This was a fantasy weapon. It was one of the options in the game 10 Days in the Wilderness. For the sake of pursuing gameplay and cool feeling, it had the least connection to reality. The official name of the bird-shaped exoskeleton was Phoenix. It was a very typical type. Although it was called a phoenix, it was unable to fly freely in the sky. However, the particle cannon it carried had an extremely long attack range, and its power was enormous. The game system needed to be balanced, so it reduced its attack frequency and obliterated its close combat ability. This could barely be considered a balance. However, there were still many people who were obsessed with the power of mass destruction. They used Phoenix to satisfy their craving. It was not strange for one or two Phoenix to appear in a battle, but the problem was that this Phoenix was clearly still charging power. Another cannon shot came down from midair, chasing after Luo Nan and Shuelei. A sea of fire immediately formed behind the two. They had simply charged out from the flames. How are they so fast? The spectators in Area A were puzzled at first, but they were all in an uproar as the camera moved. There was still one. No, a total of 4 phoenixes. They were separated from Luonan and Shuele by 3 to 5 kilometers. This was an area that the radar could not illuminate. Even a fantasy weapon like the Phoenix would not be able to do so. But reality was that the precision of the 2 cannon shots was remarkable, and there were some clear targets. It didn't make sense. In this hilly terrain, 1 or 2 phoenixes could find the angle, but the others were completely blind. How could they guarantee their precision? Luonan and Shuele could be seen running madly in the reality battlefield while the 4 phoenixes took turns firing their particle cannons. Though they came from different directions, they all maintained an inconceivable degree of accuracy. Luonan and Shuele escaped death time and time again, but their armor was already on the verge of collapse. A godly gunner combination? Look at the list. They're all in the VIP room. Do they have some special function? Most of the spectators were puzzled no matter how they thought about it, but the people in the Allied channel had already obtained the answer through awkward silence. In the end, it was Mo Peng who sneered. Godly gunner? They're godlike observers. Before his voice fell, Luonan, who had been running madly without rest, came to an urgent stop. He seized the gap between the 4 Phoenix particle cannons and raised his hand cannon. The omniscient view showed that the closest Phoenix to him was 1,500 meters away. Gunshots rumbled continuously. 70 meters away, a certain small mound of dirt suffered from concentrated fire. It was instantly plowed by the powerful hand cannon ammunition. What's going on? The group of people had yet to come to a realization when they saw a figure leap out from behind the small mound of dirt. It was a deep blue walker. His speed was extremely fast, and his dodging movements were quite skillful. He ran and jumped, occasionally rolling a few times. His movements were extremely fluid. However, his luck was quite bad when facing Luonan, who was already a super god. Luonan's last bullet from his hand cannon directly broke through his armor and struck a vital spot. Instant death. Since this attack had been launched for quite some time, it did not count as a combo. The system only responded with a powerless first blood. But the spectators in Area A had already subconsciously leaned toward the most dazzling star on the battlefield by a large margin. They were brought to a small climax. 666. He didn't forget to reap even when fleeing. That bro hid himself quite well. He must have been preparing to nest until the very end. A calamity descended from the heavens. Ah no, a super god descended from the heavens. Where's the particle cannon? Someone finally discovered the problem. From then on, the second wave of particle cannons formed a deviation that seemed to cross the entire Pacific Ocean. Luonan was too lazy to move. He climbed up another mound of high ground and used the electromagnetic cannon to snipe at the phoenixes one by one. 4 phoenixes had already been set up and were still in the charging phase. They became the best targets. 3 phoenixes were blasted away by high explosive rounds in a row. Luonan activated his killing mode. With great difficulty, the farthest particle cannon had exceeded Luonan's firing range. It had calculated the coordinates and was about to charge its power successfully, but Luonan, who was on top of the mound, suddenly disappeared the instant before the particle cannon was fired. Your target has left the game. Luonan was stunned for a moment, but his blade suddenly flashed. Shuele, who had been hiding and moving swiftly, was killed painfully. Everything turned to ash. CKME. Banging sounds rang out from within the maglev cabin. The 4 second generations that were participating in the battle exited the cabin one after another. All of them were gnashing their teeth. Zhu Maoshuan didn't join the game, but his expression was extremely ugly. Someone shouted, "That bro named you is really useless. He can't even hide properly." If he persisted for another 5 seconds, he would have definitely killed those 2. Hey, where's he? He shifted his gaze and saw the maglev cabin Yuzheng was in. A red light lit up outside. Then the cabin automatically opened, and Yuzheng practically rolled out. Under the bombardment of Luonan's hand cannon, he was forced to carry out a series of dodges. The bullets that constantly brushed past his body completely controlled his rhythm, forcing him to perform operations that exceeded his limits. He did it in a daze. He finished it in a daze. Then the evil consequences of exceeding his limits came rolling back. He did his best to cover his mouth, but he was unable to hold it in. The alcohol and snacks he had stuffed into his stomach sprayed out through the gaps between his fingers. There was even quite a bit that splashed onto his face. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.